This conference will now be recorded.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I will call attendance. We've got Supervisor Welsh, Supervisor Tinkle, Supervisor Banks, Supervisor Geppert, and
Mr. Guy is not online. He is recovering from hip replacement surgery this week. So he said he may be on it depending on how he feels.
okay. And we've got District Council represented today and District Manager. So we'll open up with public comments. Chris?
Sure. We have 3 today, and first, Randy Bottleson.
Yes, and just do me a favor, just as a reminder before you get started, if you've got a phone inside, just put it on mute. And if you are attending online, just make sure your phone is muted until it's your time to speak. Go ahead, you may proceed.
My name is Randy Bottleson. I am here as an applicant for the Pelican Preserve Advisory Committee. I wanted to stop here today and introduce myself. I believe a copy of my application has been provided to all of you. So I'm going to make this a Reader's Digest version. But my wife and I have been residents of Pelican Preserve for about 3.5 years. We moved from Eden Prairie, Minnesota, a suburb of Minneapolis. I have been a member of the golf club at Pelican Preserve. We also have a fishing club that I'm active with and a group that's called the Beacon Club. And that is for residents who are visually impaired. And my wife is legally blind, so we are active in that. Provides both social and practical support for those who are suffering from some vision issues. In terms of experience, my father was a bricklayer, making contractor, and did some developing early on. I got to mix a lot of cement for the less cement blocks, but ultimately my wife and I owned some rental properties, and I got our first taste of what being an association and a landlord is about. Significantly different in Pelican Preserve and that Gateway, I'm sure as well. I spent probably 35 years in career sales and marketing, product management, selling products and capital equipment used for open heart surgery. Much of that time I had a 4-state territory that when I was in management roles and or product management roles, I had extensive travel across the country and a certain amount of international travel. In that kind of role, I think that one of the takeaways is that with sales, you always have sales forecasts to meet, but it all starts with a budget for travel, entertainment, all of those types of things. So do have some experience in helping to create budgets and or try my best to stay within budget. And I have a link to a LinkedIn profile at the bottom of my application. It hasn't been updated very much in the last few years, but I would welcome you to take a look if you have more interest.
Okay.
And if there's any questions that I could answer.
No.
Welcome aboard, and
Thank
thanks
you.
for volunteering to be
Thank you for
feedback.
your time. I really appreciate
Thank you.
Getting a chance to meet everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next from Stony Brook, Joe McCulca.
Good afternoon, thanks for having me. Joe McCulk, I still chair of the advisory committee for Stony Brook. 2 things I want to say. One, for the record, that we do have one member of our committee that will be stepping down and we'll need to replace that person. And we'll be looking for a new member, and we'll be probably presenting that to you. It would be next meeting, but I'm not going to be here, so probably won't be until August 4th. And we'll present a new selection for that, and we'll let people in the community know. Also, just to update real quick, we have made the final fine tunings to our budget, and they'll be submitted. It has been done as of Wednesday. We do have one issue, and that's why I'm here today. That is the calculations to determine our responsibility for payroll within this Gateway Services District coming from the 004 budget. It seems, and this is a problem that reoccurs every few years, and we have to come back and restate the issue, that we pay a lot of the payroll and the payroll cost through the money that we pay directly into the 001. The 004 is to essentially manage the assets that Gateway owns within Stony Brook. And the fact is that when we look at the percentages we're being asked to pay, the items exceed the time we believe that are incremental to the basic payroll of the members of the staff. Some of the percentages we agree with, some of them we do not agree with. I'm not going to go over the details, but I'd like you all to take another look at that. I'm sure we'll have more to say about that as during the budget process, but it doesn't seem fair. We are actually tripling in this budget from last year what we're expected to pay out of the 004 budget for payroll. And that's not right, especially since recently we were told they want to spend less time in Gateway, from Gateway in Stony Brook.
Joe, you're talking about the staff time here that's allocated to Stony Brook?
To Stony Brook's assets owned by Gateway. There's a lot of time spent, as you well know, assets of office staff and field staff come into your community, but you don't get billed additionally that because you pay for that in the 001 fund. You pay for it in the Lakes Fund. You pay for it in various other funds. That's part of what you pay in your taxes. We pay that same amount. The 004 fund, we feel, should only be responsible for the incremental time above that.
Why wouldn't, just spitballing here, why wouldn't we be able to take a calculation of the assets that are publicly owned, CDD owned, in your community and compare those with the total to come up with a percentage that we use for the allocation of staff? That seems to me to be very, very simple way of doing it. In other words, the roads, the sidewalks, the curbs, take that asset value of cost that we incur for those items, prorate it to everything else we do, and then you just pay the percentage of the proration.
What about the money we're paying and dropping into the 001?
I'm sorry?
The money we pay for those people directly?
Well, no,
into the
if we take, what I'm doing is taking out the things that you have that, let's take, for example, if your roads and things were a part of your community, like our community, you'd be paying for them separately. So those have to be separately identified, pulled out. Now, if you pull just those items out, you should be equal to everybody else in the community. What you pay into 001, same as I pay into 001.
And we are. We're doing that already.
So what I'm saying is I was trying to use the ratio of the dollars spent on operating the roads that are in Stony Brook that apply just to you to apply to the ratio of what the salaries are that staff time we're doing. So if we're paying $500,000 in staff time and 5% of that's associated with Stony Brook, then you pay 25,000, 5%.
Suppose it's 2% or 1%.
Whatever it is,
Suppose that person
let the
doesn't spend
math.
any time associated with Stony Brook other than the things that are paid through the 001 fund.
Well, I would argue that the people that are in Stony Brook are getting a benefit by having staff pay for things that are associated with your roads that they don't do in ours, because we pay for them. So I'm just trying to get it to equal. If you take the roads and the sidewalks, which I believe are the only two things that are public, that would even have any justification for us charging you anything to begin with, take those out of the equation and it's all equal.
I'm not sure that the value of the asset necessarily is relevant or proportional to the amount of time spent by the.
Well, there's another way of doing it. Do we keep timesheets?
Yeah, we could do billable hours.
If we bill it by hours, that makes it real easy.
And I think you'd lose money on that one. I'm telling you right now.
I don't care who wins and loses. I want it to be
Okay,
accurate.
And I don't have a problem with that, but then you might have to do with the others in the community to do a simple or fair situation. And that opens up another whole can of worms.
Who else has, the only one that's Pelican,
Pelican, right,
Pelican. And what goes for you should go for them.
that's what I'm saying.
So I think what we should do,
I think
Joe,
the
is
handlers
let's
way
just,
good.
Chris, let's do just an internal audit of that, and let's just confirm the calculations, and validate if it's, you know.
And the problem, and we need to make sure they understand, if they're doing something concerning Stony Brook, it should only be, if it's gonna be incremental, it has to be on the specific assets that Ed's talking about. Not about those other things, the lift stations, the water, the sewer. drainage,
That's
separate
common.
item.
That's common. That
Exactly.
should not, no. We don't go down that road.
I agree.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that they understand that every time they go into Stony Brook, they're not saying or doing work here at Stony Brook that's about something other than those assets.
No,
It should not be hitting that work.
it's just got to be the assets that you own or that we own that differentiate you from everybody else. And both you and Pelican both have the same issue. It's the roads.
Yeah, we just want to make sure we're not double billing.
Yeah, don't want to double bill it.
Yeah, and I'm afraid some of that, when we look at, that's how.
Okay.
All
Well-
right, any questions?
I don't have any problem
No,
with that.
thanks, Joe.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Okay. And last one, we have Rod Senior, miscellaneous.
Good afternoon, all. Afternoon, guys. The 2022 budget, 88% increase for the residents is wholly unacceptable. I understand that the $5 million proposed is going to be primarily spent on capital items such as sidewalks, roadworks, stormwater repairs, irrigation, and streetlights. I understand that you're trying to ease the burden by taking out a 5-year note, 5-year loan on this. That's a step in the right direction. I would strongly ask you to consider a 20-year bond, 20-year financing. We've just gone through this, Ed and I, on our homeowners association with a capital reserve study that provided for 25-year payment for these types of capital items. And the whole idea is to take it off the heads of the current residents and spread it over the future generation who are going to enjoy the improved asset, which makes a lot of sense. And I urge you to give it the same sort of thinking in this regard. Take a 20-year bond. It does require, I'm sure, a bond validation hearing. Your attorneys and Stephen Bloom could probably comment on all this. I don't know exactly how much a bond validation hearing would cost, but if it's $100,000, then you get a bond for $5.1 million and spread it over 20 years. I wouldn't shy away from doing that. I think it's the right thing to do. That's the first point. Second thing is the proposed improvements at Gateway Commons. I know it's on your agenda today. We're in danger of creating the same monster as we had in 2007. Those who were here 14 years ago remember that this became a really difficult problem with the community. The genie got out of the bottle and it was very difficult to put it back in once it took form. And it was a result of not listening to the residents and not asking them the right questions, giving them the right information in terms of what it's going to cost. It's all these things that are on this list, wish list, are good ideas maybe for some people, but you've got it's the cost, not just the capital, but the ongoing. So here's a couple of thoughts. Learning lessons from the 2007 Stop the Park movement, which I led. State Senator Ehrenberg, I got involved in this thing at the time, and his main point, and it's still valid today, is to get community consensus. You have to get community consensus when you're building a $5-6 million project like this, if that's indeed what you're going to do. I know your green lights,
They still 155.
but I know that Mr. Davis was allowed 20 minutes a few weeks ago, so just cut me a bit of slack if you would. These are important things. Let the taxpayers vote was something that a lot of the residents involved in Stop the Park were asking for. In this very room, this was packed, and we had 200 people outside. And we had the church, Trinity Church, packed with 503 people. The 99% of who were wanting to stop the park. They wanted a vote on this. Chairman Dora, at the time, was regarded as somewhat arrogant in the sense that he came back and said, well, we don't need to ask for a vote. We don't have to. Well, of course you don't, because you're elected. But in this situation, I think it's a really good idea. If you're not going to build consensus, then let them vote. It went down like a lead balloon. The survey that you've sent out had no costs at all. I think that was a flawed survey as a result. I'm sure you're going to go back out now with some refinements and maybe hopefully some costs and ask them again. 1,300 respondents over 6,000 units is 20% response. That's statistically valid, but only just. The results haven't been shared yet with the community, and I would strongly urge you to. I mean, survey monkeys are important. We've just done this, Ed, at our cable committee. We put Comcast fiber in Gateway Greens, but that was a result of it. We had to recall the entire board, Ed and I, because they were taking it down the wrong direction on cable. And as a result of all that, we built consensus by going out to the community with survey after survey, giving them pie chart results of the previous surveys, and iterating in that respect. And in that way, we got an 85% support for Comcast fiber. And that's the kind of thing I would urge you to think about in doing this proposed upgrade at Gateway Commons. Now, I know the staff met with the consultant, Bill Pricey. He's a good guy. I tried to hire him. We did hire him when I was on the board here. He's a very good digital designer. It makes very persuasive, nice pictures of what it's going to look like, and everybody's got the wow factor, right? And people can do that with digital design. The problem is that everything in the kitchen sink's going to be involved in that design, together with floodlights. I mean, $5.5 million. We've got to listen to whether the residents really wanted and needed. We haven't considered operating and maintenance. Neither did Bill 14 years ago include operating and maintenance, and that includes mainly staffing, electrical, etc. The one thing, again, that hasn't been considered is security. We're having a devil of a problem, as you well know, even protecting the basketball court at the fun park. We've had a bad history of abuse down there, and people not living in Gateway using that facility. I think just if you're going to build stuff at Gateway Commons, it's going to have to be secured. You're going to need 4,000 foot of chain link fence.
Hey, Ron, I'm just going to respectfully ask you just to wrap up just a little bit, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
4,000 feet of 8 foot high chain link fence, 120 grand. We're going to get people coming in, otherwise we're going to use the facilities and who are going to vandalize the facilities. Okay, main point I want to raise. Positive ideas about the park. I'm in favor of nature trails, boardwalks, fishing piers, sheltered picnic areas, possibly a band shell if the community really wants a band shell. I think it's a good idea. So there we go. Those are the things that I think we should have. I would shy away from hard structures for the main reason being you've got to have a 25% usage rate to be able to justify anything. And that includes the pool. And we have only 10%, and I would demolish it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some questions that Rod raises that Chris, perhaps you can chime in on. One, we've gone to the bank and we've got a proposal from them for $3 million and $5 million for 5 years to avoid the bond validation and an interest rate that was immensely attractive. Was there any discussion with them by any chance of, say, a 15 or 20-year bond, assuming that we got the validation?
I don't think we asked.
What kind of an interest rate we could get?
We didn't ask for that.
Okay.
We just went
That might be
strictly, we
something we
could.
want, because if we could get a good attractive rate, stalling that off to get the bond validation might be a big deal. Second thing is bond validation. What is our estimated costs that when we went through this the last time for the SRF, what was our estimated cost and the time from start to finish of the bond validation process?
When we did that, when we did press RF, it was just under 6 months, and it was legal time for Tony, staff time, and we had private counsel that sent
Engineering.
us a bill, an engineering report, and private counsel sent us a bill for $45,000.
Total of everything?
Now, that was one attorney's bill, so
One
we
attorney's
probably had close to $100,000.
That's what I remembered being the number.
Yep.
Okay. Then relative to the pool, what is the current number of families? How many people have cards? And of those, are there multiple cards per family? I'm trying to get a handle on, that pool is going to be a sticking issue here, at least as far as my vote's concerned. I've heard that we have about 1,000 cards out. Does that mean we have 1,000 families? Or do we have people that have 2 cards, 3 cards per family?
In some families, there's multiple cards. There are 1,000 cards issued, and there's typically 35 average swipes a day going into the pool. But that could be someone coming in with 3 or 4 kids, or someone coming in by themselves. We don't keep an actual head count. It's a card.
And that doesn't take into account, that's not unique swipes.
That's not what.
So if you're talking about, if someone swipes, does it count? Is that one swipe for that user for the day, or every time someone comes in and out, it counts the swipe?
Just swipe on the entry.
On the
it could be multiple
But it could be,
people.
all. So you can come in and out your car 3 times and that accounts
Okay,
for
so
3 swipes.
what I was getting to is that for purposes of trying to do some analysis of the percentage of, we've got roughly 5,000 homes in Gateway.
4,500,
4,500.
5,000 if you look at
And
multifamily.
if we have, let's say of that 1,000, it's legitimately 500 families. Be a fair deal. 500 out of 4,500, what is that, 1/9, 11%? So we're talking about some big, big bucks, capital bucks to be spent to the benefit of 11% of the community. Not very good. This year, we're going to spend $291,000 on operating costs for that pool alone, You divide that out by that 500 and it comes out big, big operating bucks, in addition to the capital bucks.
I think we need to save the conversation around what's valid and what's not, for when we have something that's
Well, what I'm
more
trying to
specific.
come up with
We're-
is what I'm trying to lead into is that for the public is where is going to be our line drawn at which we go down and authorize the engineer to finalize plans on assets at that park? Is it at a 25% public involvement, a 30%, a 10%? If we go to a 10% based upon the what do you call it, the survey we did, you're going to go way down that list.
Yeah, well, we're not there yet. I think this is all
Well, these are things
a
the public,
perfectly valid
these are-
conversation,
these
but
are things that
we need to have
public-
dedicated time to
but
go through
the public needs to know these things, because I don't know about you, but I'm getting calls on this stuff. People are, they don't want anything. They don't want anything.
I mean,
And I think there needs to be a reason. There needs to be a reason what we're doing. Then the other one is that, and this is the big one. The money that we're proposing to use, whether it be via the bond validation or this bond that we have borrowed, either or, what access does the non-gateway public have to this pool? Or to this park? What keeps Lehigh out of this deal? How do we stop that? Is the funding that we're using allow us to prohibit and only give cards to those that are in Gateway?
If we use
Well,
impact.
hey,
money,
Chris, let's
okay, we'll
not-
just stop it.
Yeah, let's just.
I ask a legitimate question, Doug.
But we're
It's a
not-
legitimate question.
And I'm saying, let's get a workshop or something together. We can open these up, because
I
we
understand
can
that.
keep going and ask multiple questions.
There's people
I
that are in
understand
the
your point,
audience, people are calling
But it's
me,
not a
asking me
topic for us to
questions.
discuss today. Rod came up, made his public comments.
That-
Absolutely.
That opened it up to be
appreciate it.
able to ask a question.
And that will come up on the 15th, because the survey and also the conceptual proposal for the recreation facilities will be on the agenda.
On the agenda for the 15th?
Yes, sir.
So we'll have opportunities. I'm
Okay.
not trying to shut you down. I'm just saying that this is not probably the most appropriate time for us to go into.
But at this point in
those areas.
time, we're not using any federal or local monies that would allow anybody to use these assets?
Not at this time, no.
Right.
I-
Okay.
And the only public money that's available is $275,000 in the infrastructure recreation fee bank that could be available.
Is that the impact fees?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And if
So
we use that, that opens
those-
it up. We don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole then.
Doug, I do have two questions, I guess, and it was just preparation for the 15th. One, I just want to get clarification on the cards per family, because I'm not, I was told that it's one card per family, not multiple cards per family. That would make a big difference.
Big difference.
Big difference.
And we'll get those numbers.
So that is important. If you can bring that up for the 15th. And second is if there's any way to find out, because I get what Ed is saying, and I do think there's a valid point there, but I'm one that I don't use the pool. I don't use it because I just don't think it's fun. I'm most likely to spend the money and buy the summer membership at Gateway Greens and use it there. If there's any ways that we can contact them and see how many Gateway residents are actually paying for the summer membership, that may not willing to be buying the summer membership when we do have a pool, that they'd be willing to come. Because we have to think about that too, because there are residents that they're not that 11% or that 1 point, the 500, that they're using the Gateway Greens, which I would, if I had a choice between that and what we have now, I'll be over there.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
So those are the two things that if there's any way that we can find out that, and we can find out one card per family, because that makes a big difference.
And we're going to be, will we have out for the 15th a copy of the pre-seed report and the survey results so that the public, when they come, will be knowledgeable what we're talking about?
Yes, and what they're planning on doing too is then issuing the survey again with those items, but attaching a price tag to them.
Good. Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have any other speakers? No. Okay, great. All right, so let's continue moving forward. We will start with staff reports, and we'll kick it off with council.
We do not have any reports today.
Two of you, no reports? Really?
Tony,
Said the wrong people. There's something coming up.
I like
guess,
this.
that we need to know about.
Okay, I'm just,
Tony may have overreacted with,
Yeah. Okay.
sending two of us.
yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. I'm just giving you a hard time. District engineer, Stephen, are you on?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. This is Steven. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hey, we don't have any agenda items. We gave our update last meeting, and our next update will be on the next meeting. So unless you guys have questions, we'll let you get back to business.
Any questions for engineering?
Steve, yeah, one for Steve. Steve, any update on the I-75 crossing and the piping?
I don't have an update for that, no.
Be interested to see if there's, we got possible high tide coming here in about 7 days. Trying to figure out where all the water is going to go if it hits.
Understand. I haven't heard anything new, though.
Okay.
Okay, one comment for the board in working with Stephen. He's developing the costs of the pond that we presented the last time of making changes to our design from 100% Armor Max to a variation. And asked for him to present to us a couple of options on this. One, if we just go with Armor Max, what's the ballpark cost? Secondly, if we take away the Armor Max and do the coconut mesh in the areas that have been designated, because it's not 100%, what does that cost? And third, if we did the coconut mesh and did some type of a downspout addition, what would that cost be? And then there's going to be a few bucks thrown in through littorals. But as we go forward in the analysis, and we're going to look today at Pond 85 Silver Lakes, that's how we're going to approach it, to see if there's real savings or if it's imagined.
Yeah, and let me just point of clarity. So what we're trying to do is, as we move forward, is to look at alternative solutions where there might be either value engineering applied or additional cost saving initiative. Because I got tons of inquiries after the last time we addressed this with Stony Brook. So the point is we want to continue to look at options, and what Bob is speaking to is continue to make sure that we have multiple options for solutions as we have opportunities for lake bank restoration in the future.
Yeah, and whatever we would like to pursue as a board, our recommendation based on our experience in Pelican is that we have multiple meetings with the homeowners, the HOA and people to either get their buy-in. Because the last thing any of us want is for someone to say, I want exactly what he got it because he got it, and to spend a whole lot of money. And if we get that way, if it becomes a political decision, that's not a problem. Anybody can spend money. It takes a little bit of more information and knowledge for people to willingly take less than the quote unquote optimum.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Bob. Anything else for? Okay. Moving on to district manager reports.
Sure, and I have an extensive report on a number of items, and I did want to mention that West Links is now open down at Commerce Lakes on the roundabout there. That has been closed the last 5 weeks.
Yeah, I came over that way today.
Yeah, and it is open in both directions, and they're hoping to have all the paving done and all lanes open by September. The utility work is complete in that area. They're just finishing up with the as-built drawings, so for them in final inspection. So our role is quickly diminishing, and we'll be out of there in the next 2 weeks.
They're laying sod. I hope to hell they're done. It'd be a bad time to be going back and tearing up the sod.
Sure.
It's a lot of sod.
There's a lot of sod.
And I just have a thing too. We discussed briefly the meter sys technology performance assessment, and we'll be having individual meetings with each of the board members to discuss that final report over the next 2 weeks and then move forward from there. Pelican Boardwalk on schedule. There's some change orders that have come up with that.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out within the Pelican organization how they're handling the change orders and to see if we're being nickeled and dimed. Because some things are, they should have been seen. They were foreseeable and they should have been seen. And now that they're opening the can of worms, I wasn't happy with the bid process to begin with, and I'm damn sure not going to be happy if they now start cost plussing.
They're doing some additional replacement in there, and we're keeping an eye on that. And we'll take those to PPAC also. Emergency road at Prado, we did get the, thanks to Mr. Rovner and some assistance over there, got the agreement signed with WCI. The next thing we'll be doing is the DRI application will be submitted. The engineering's moving forward, the survey's moving forward, the deeds are moving forward. And this week we'll get started with the preliminary plans for the landscape buffer along that area.
Hey, and Chris, on that, I'm not sure if I'm clear on it. Is that just an unobstructed pass-through identified as emerging access, or where there'll be some type of entry prohibitor, a gate or something?
There's gates.
There is a gate, okay.
There'll be gates on both ends. On Prado, it has to be the decorative gate. There'll be a slider. There'll be regular arm gates. And also one purpose of that landscape buffer is to keep people from coming off the road in a truck, or if they felt like getting access to that road, there'll be landscaping in the way.
Yeah, I think it was always going to be a double gate based on what Pelican wanted and what we wanted.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure.
And we'll also have an update today on the utility rate case moving forward. We did have some changes to it. And what we're going to do today is not take any board action, with the exception of ask for a motion where we can advertise an amendment to the district rules for rates and the connection fees, and get board input on the final draft product. But we'll be bringing that back in August, and asking to schedule a public hearing with implementation in January. We're also rolling that out to our customers and the HOAs, especially those with master meters, because they're impacted by any changes to the irrigation rates. And one thing we're trying to do is sell with them is the advantage of rain sensors and conservation, because if you go in there and look at your irrigation use closely, it should be no net increase, that you can really tone back a lot of that if you cut your water back in that time of year like now, where you don't need to be watering.
What keeps, let's say, somebody that's in one of these additions, Daniel's Preserve, what keeps me from going out there and watering 7 days a week?
Well, it doesn't, and they have issues with that where people's heads are broken and they let them know, and they'll take weeks to fix it because it doesn't show up in their monthly water bill. It
So
shows
they
up to the
don't have,
association.
like most of Gateway has, is under 2 deals, 2 waterings a week.
Right.
Dresses in 0 and dresses in 1. but there's what? 3 days of the week where there's no water allowed.
If those people want to turn
Why-
their controllers on, they can
Why
turn
don't
them
they
on.
just turn the pumps on?
Well, there are pumps, and the only way you can do that, we've had several communities ask us on non-watering days if we can go
Yeah, just
shut their
shut it
lines
off.
off. And one thing it does is it prohibits any repair work being done if they want to have irrigation
You mean on the
contractor.
individual house?
Yes, sir. If they want to come in and the whole subdivision
That's
shut
4
down.
other days of the week they can work on it.
Well, we've had requests from folks to ask us, the HOAs, can you shut the water off on non-watering days?
Well, I saw one thing when I drove through there today, looking on the pond issue. There were no brown yards at all.
Well,
They were lush.
yeah.
So somebody's using a lot of water.
Well, there's a lot coming down too.
Now, Chris, we do have the existing capability to regulate use through our system. Is that,
Well, the only way we regulate it, we do to some degree now, is during the daytime, we do lower the pressure on non-watering days.
so we don't have the technical capability to set forth, to turn the system
Close it
off and
out.
on.
Yeah, just go close
No,
it
we would
out.
have
But I
to-
know that there are systems where you can automate that, but you're saying our system isn't that sophisticated.
No,
correct?
we do not have pressure regulating valves or valves that we can shut on and off remotely.
Okay.
We would have to go out there and manually turn those valves on and off on those
Yeah.
days.
Okay.
But isn't it a subject that we touched with Tony before in regards to, like, we had the ability to, if we, because I guess originally.
do it.
We can do it.
We can do it.
I think our website says recommended. It actually doesn't say that it must be. So that was one thing. It says it's recommended 2 days. It doesn't.
I
And
mean,
then Tony did say that if we really want to enforce it, we could enforce it. It just has to be a board direction. So
Yeah, I'd like to know what their usage per user is under a master versus what the usage per meter is for the people that are on an individual meter. Be real interesting, because ours is like, what, 18,000 gallon a month?
15 to 18 is the average.
What is theirs?
Well, that's one thing we're looking at in this rate case too, that they're working on right now is meter equivalents. How many homes are on that size of meter, whether it's an 8-inch, a 3-inch,
That's another issue.
and the amount of flow going through
and
there.
I'm just curious, and it's not specific to this area, but kind of what type of upgrade is even possible for our system to be able to regulate if we ever so choose to do so? How much would it cost to upgrade our system? to have that
A
capability?
automatic valve that
The
would
valve.
turn on and off like that would definitely be a minimum of $10,000.
Yeah. About right.
Which is-
are we
We
talking
talked about doing it before.
Are we talking about the digital one? That would it be, okay, so we looked at that at Magnolia Lakes and is that the one that we're talking about? And then it was the HOA's responsibility, because that's what we're told. And it was around $8,800 to do it, and it was
Which
just
really isn't that bad.
not. Yeah, but it wasn't as easy as well as what we thought it was,
Well, the first thing you gotta do is show to the people
right?
that it's
Right, Kenny,
a,
I think, I'm just
it's a
looking at
cost
Kenny
savings.
because,
That's the big one. Is tell people that you're using double the amount of water you should be using. Then you can start justifying those types of savings.
Again, I'm
If
not
it's
saying
no
I
savings, it's not worth it.
advocate that or not. I was just curious what the capability was. How much would it cost just to expand our capability to do something like that?
And we've had HOAs also ask us about coming in and putting individual irrigation meters. So the individual customers are responsible for their bills, but it's so cost prohibitive
Yeah.
to do repumping and piping.
Well, we also need to make sure we're very clear on what problem we're trying to solve. So, which, yeah, okay.
And we're also working on that water use permit. We've sent the draft permit for the club at Gateway, and that's basically breaking them away from the district's water use permit for the club itself. And we hope to bring that back to the board in the next 60 days. And once that agreement's signed, then the water management district will issue the club their own water use permit for golf course irrigation. Board approved the agreement for the revolving loan for design and permitting for the 3 projects, and the notice to proceed and the task orders approved for Tetra Tech have been issued to them. So those projects are underway right now. And the summer forest main project that the board approved the low bidder at the last meeting, we'll be bringing that contract back on July 15th. At $716,000. We may have a few add-ons, but that should be a good project all the way around, and take about 75% of the work for the roundabout out of that roundabout schedule. So when they get started, we'll have a minimum amount of work in there, not like Commerce Lakes.
Is this the one we were talking about, looking at the potential options, the cut through? The,
Property. This is 16 inch.
This one where you said,
putting a-
instead of underboring,
Oh, we're gonna
Oh,
bring
the
that
open
up.
cut.
open cut.
On July 7th, there's a meeting with the county transportation people, and that's basically a post and pre-meeting for the roundabouts, looking at efficiencies, what was done right, what was done wrong, and we'll be bringing up the
Okay.
potential. At the 7th with the county, and on the 5th, we're having a meeting with the contractor to talk to him.
Okay.
What kind of savings we could get of an open cut versus that high bore cost?
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
if the county will let us do it, and also what the contractor will charge us.
Okay,
And
great,
the
great.
utility roundabout projects, 85% plans, and they're really looking at a March or April start with that project. And they originally were looking in January, but they're having some issues getting the property rights. They need some property over there across the street, which is one of the defunct property owners associations. So they're.
Fairway Lakes?
Yes, sir.
Will the open cut be rain sensitive? Is there a time of the year that you want to do that
Well, you hope
versus
they-
other times?
It would dry out, but if they go in and do it pretty quick. They would just dewater it and shore it up.
Okay.
And they would only be able to allow.
Because you said it was going to be done in March. Is it?
That will be done this summer and moving
Oh.
into the fall. So
Okay.
KO Palone and the C5 looking at development approvals. Arborwood 3, they have submitted us the request to clear their water and sewer system for operation. They're actually getting to the point where they need construction water and installing meters. The final walkthrough was this week on the water and sewer system. And the only caveat is we're working on an agreement with them that we will not let them install meters till we have an agreement that they'll pay for construction related damages to the lift station. Because as we found out in other areas like Prado, once they start their home building, they're breaking off sewer caps. They're having garbage go down the cleanouts, and we're pulling plumbers' plugs and 2 feet of sand out of the bottom of a brand new wet well. And their explanation was, well, you have a warranty for the pump and for those lines. And I said, well, they don't honor a warranty when foreign objects are going up in it and they're clogged with sand. But they've been real helpful. And also coming up next month.
But before you leave the C5.
Sure.
I was talking to Brian this week and the Ponds Work Group, and apparently the pipe that WCI initially installed from the C5 development over to Pelican, the merging pipe where we're going to take their water, is got a lot of problems. And apparently Lennar's trying to ask us to clean it.
You talk about clogging and
Yeah,
buildup?
yeah, you know how far that's going to go.
Yeah.
We told them if they didn't want something in it, they should have clogged it in the beginning, piped it, plugged it.
Yeah.
Put a plug in. If they didn't, they've still got to do it. It's theirs.
And Mr. Gopi sent them, if they want to use the pipe, they need to clean it just like a brand new pipe letter today.
Yep.
So I think they'll move forward. Summit Broadband, that's just another repeat of fiber optic cable coming in from Daniels up Gateway Boulevard, Griffin, and Griffin to the school. It's a backup line for the school. And we gave them a list of concerns that we had, and they are working and moving forward to that to put the district on as an additional insured and have detailed meetings with us.
How are they getting around Commerce Roundabout?
They're trying to figure that out right now because it wasn't in their initial plans.
There's no room.
No.
Unless they bore underneath the Italian restaurant.
Well, they're looking at going 8 feet deep and just boring under everything. But when you bore, you have to come up and you have to go
Someplace.
down. So that's why we had all these concerns. And I will say that I was not getting much cooperation with Summit Broadband, and the county told them until we're satisfied, they're not going to issue the permit.
Good.
So that made our lives easier. And we're just trying to minimize damage and have a successful relationship with the contractor and let them get in and out, and minimal impacts to everybody.
Good job.
And of course, we have the proposed borrowing that's moving forward with the bank.
So just to be clear on that, we're going to go back and just ask Stephen just to look at extended times through 15, 20 year.
Yeah, I think you go over 20 years, I think the interest rate's going to go, if they even allow it.
Well, and you have to make sure that whatever you're borrowing for, that,
It has a service life.
yeah, the service life isn't, doesn't come up within that time period, then you're just,
Well, my thought is if it's attractive and a bank would be willing to do it, we might want to take and do two things, do a short-term bond for those things that we want to do in 2022. And these other projects down the road, do those on a long-term 15, 20-year bond. And like Rod said, throw the $100,000 into the bond financing. They come back with less than 4%. That's awful attractive.
Okay,
Yep.
And
so
that-
let's just, see if
Just
we
find
can.
out the answer.
Okay, and also we'll be moving forward with a similar bond validation process for the enterprise fund because those 3 projects that were approved for design and permitting, they'll be done in about 11 months. So we'll want to do a 20-year SRF note, and that'll be a bond validation for the enterprise fund, not the general fund like was done for the Lake Bank Restoration Program.
Yeah.
So we'll be back in that business. And you also are going to be seeing release of some more development bonds that have come up for their 3-year. And the standard process is we go out and do a final inspection with the district engineer, utilities and public works, and make sure there aren't any issues that need to be addressed. And those will be coming back to the board.
Yeah.
And they're working right now on remediation with Matarita Phase 4 because there were several things that came up during that inspection. And for the most part, Lennar is addressing them. And that's all I have today. Laura, you're next.
Laura Leroy, Business Manager. Just a couple of quick follow-ups from the last board meeting. The Met Tower invoices that we were not going to pay, and then we did decide to pay them. Those were approved yesterday, so the payment will be going out this week for the balances that were due on those 2 invoices for the washout repairs. The new lobby office hours are in place. Pretty much business as usual. It's pretty quiet. We only get a handful of people in here every day, so nothing much has really changed. I'm sure next week will be different. They're gonna do shut-offs for the water bill, so I'm sure Julie will be a little busy for a day or 2, but other than that, it's been pretty quiet on my front. Just working on a lot of budget stuff, working on renewals for liability insurance, things like that. I did take a listen to the board meeting from the 17th. From what I could make out of all the changes that you guys requested to the assistant district manager job description, the biggest ones were just that I added the salary range and made some changes to what was on there and updated in the knowledge and skills area and the education and experience areas, but I did not make any other changes on there. So the revised draft is in your board book.
I noticed that we asked, I thought, and approved either was 100 or 115,000 to be added to the salary on
The budget?
the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, that got done.
And- Okay.
There's in that version 2 of the budget that you
It was
have, that
there?
was overall for all staff. That wasn't for this
Right.
position.
It was,
Okay.
I believe it was
I missed it then.
$150,000 that you discussed. Yeah.
Okay.
And I saw
missed it then.
Steven's note in the budget that he did. We didn't, it shows up as a footnote on the salary page that there's $150,000 put in there for market adjustments.
yeah, I think overall it was like about 315 and all the different
Yeah.
315 in the.
So I guess I'm just looking for feedback from you on the draft that's in the board book for this time, because I know I need to have approval before it can be posted.
I didn't have any edits.
Nor did I.
Neither did I.
I'm glad I caught everything. It was really confusing.
Yeah,
So-
I can imagine. So we have a motion just to approve the assistant district manager job description.
I so moved.
Have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so you can
Okay,
proceed
I
with
will-
getting
I
it
will
posted and
Yep.
see what happens.
Okay, that's all I had.
Right, thank
Unless
you.
anyone has questions for me.
And Leslie, are you online?
Right there.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry.
Good afternoon, Leslie Rick-Torvik, Utility Billing Manager. I don't have much to present that I had ready for this meeting. 2 areas that I have was, one, in November, we had a good amount of delayed payments because of postage and at the post office. We actually received about 50 to 80 delayed mailings from the post office in May. So all of those came through.
From November to May?
Correct. They
Good
delivered
Lord.
a huge box, left them at the lockbox on,
Yeah.
in May.
Do you know are you seeing any canceled in payments canceled as a result of the time loss? So has anyone written you a check and then put a stop payment on it because of the time period?
No.
Okay.
Um,
That's a ridiculous amount of time.
No kidding.
Other than that, our annual water quality
So Trump's
reports were
balance.
issued.
Yeah.
I attached a copy of that. We're waiting on the health department clearance so we can start our lead and copper sampling. That should take place this month. That's all I have to report unless there's any other questions.
Any questions for Leslie?
Nope.
Great. Thank you, Leslie. Kenny?
Good afternoon, Kenny Hall, Utility Manager. I just want to follow up on that irrigation. Daniels Reserve, 2 years ago, we went into that community and we reset all of their home irrigation times. We synced them all, and we put all of the master meters on a different schedule than the regular homeowners. And Daniels Reserve was one of our biggest users, and now their water usage has dropped significantly.
What's significant? 30%?
More than that.
Okay.
They really dropped. And the next board meeting, we're going to have I'm going to bring up a full discussion meeting just on irrigation. And I'll just throw some numbers at you today, just to kind of give you a general idea for what we did in May. We broke every record we had again in May. And there's a real eye-opening number here. For our water use permit, we have an 84 million gallon a month rider out of the sandstone aquifer. We have 5 wells out of the sandstone aquifer. We had 72 million in May, 2.5 days, and we're in violation. So that is a very, very significant number. We've gone to great lengths and we've accomplished getting our infrastructure set up so that we can handle this kind of flow. We're going to go down the other side of that curve and how we're going to disperse this water. And that's for discussion meeting at the next board meeting that we're going to bring up and looking for some direction on which way we want to go with that. And just another thing we are looking at, and it is starting to become even more feasible where we can shut half the community off for one day and then turn the other half on for another day and bounce that back and forth. I don't want to get too far into that because I'm not 100% sure that it's feasible, but it's starting to become feasible. We can do that.
That 72 million was in addition to all of the wastewater coming out of the wastewater plant and the Hawthorne.
Everything.
So we're down to, that is what we have as a factor of safety.
2.5 days. We're getting
Now
to that point.
that's an average. What was our peak like? Because we've been talking about 8,000-9,000 gallon a minute.
We're at 10,000 gallons a minute.
We're at 10,000
Even
now.
10,000 gallons a minute with our rehab. We've gotten the infrastructure to the point where we can handle this.
Yeah.
It's just now that we're getting to the point where we are starting to get near our permit limitations. So that discussion is going to come up at the next board meeting. With the master meters, we really went after it about 2 years ago, and we really really got after it. And they've, for most part, have gotten on board. In answer to that question, if you have 2 or 3, what we found, 2 or 3 homes in a master meter community, the people usually will take care of that. If there's one guy that's watering every day, everybody around them it'll go to the HOA and the HOA will deal with it. Their CAMs usually will bring that up.
I can tell you right now, of our 1,430 residents, that dog don't hunt. Our HOA will not touch water usage.
Because they're not paying. Well, they're paying for
They
your
will do
common
it.
areas. They're paying for everybody.
Yeah.
On a master meter.
The thing I was wondering is that, is there a way of going back and instead of us spending capital to do enforcement, there's a much easier way of doing it. It's called the rate schedule. We go to that rate schedule and we take that second or third tier. And if you want to water your grass 4 days a week or 5 days a week, or like my neighbors, 7 days a week, it's easy. It's going to cost you $20 1,000 gallons.
And we went through.
And it doesn't cost us anything to do that. We can't find them, but we can sure as hell raise that last bracket.
We can price it, and that will usually do it. But say, when we went out to the HOAs, we had really good results. They really.
Because you got to keep in mind that we've got 140 ERUs coming in over here at Arborwood. We got a potential of 500 coming in at Worthington and another 221 at Palo, whatever. So we're looking at almost 800 ERUs. That math doesn't add. We're adding more people than we got factor of safety left in our irrigation system.
Let's get to that point. This is for the discussion coming up next week,
Okay.
but there's several things that are new that are.
We need to be looking at that
Need to be talked about.
quickly.
It's addressed.
Tell
It's
them they can't
addressed.
have any water.
I'm sorry.
They can't irrigate.
Well, my deal is I'm gonna let you have all you want. Just how much can you afford? How much can you afford?
That sounds reasonable.
And on the rate presentation, you'll see the tiers have been adjusted because that is our conservation program, is to increase the cost of the water.
Yeah, the 15 to $18,000 or 15 to 18,000 gallon average ERU use, that's not killing us. Somebody is doing and using way more,
It's usually the individual homeowners that we find are water in 7 days a week.
and we can't find them. And to go in and use the system we've got, I don't know that I've got a lot of faith in the metering system to begin with, so I don't want to go that way. The only thing that's left is money. Is if you want to use that many gallons, use 100,000 gallon a month, it's just going to cost you a lot.
And the utility relocation project, as Chris said, is over. I just want to say we have 17 new valves, all in good working order. That's huge for us. That is where where we're really on the plus side with that. The Commerce Lakes Drive fire hydrant replacement, I'm gonna let Felix go into that one. He's gonna come up for an agenda item. Our community sweeps are going with Devonshire Lakes, Waterford Village, Pinecrest, Eagle Point, all available. This has some really good information when we're done. We tabulate all the information and send it to each HOA so they can look at it and they can get that information out to their residents. Also, Manoli has done a really good job of getting all the data together in a format that somebody that doesn't really know what they're looking at can look at it and make some sense of it. To the potable water, to irrigation, how much it's costing them, how much the average use. Really good information that we're putting out with that. Our back T sampling stations that are making the health department really happy. We have one in Matarita, one on Championship Circle, one on Cypress Links. There's going to be 5 total. One's going to go on West Links Drive and one in Fairway Lakes Business Park. The health department has already called us and asking for us to get them on our sampling plan because this has turned into such an issue. And I didn't put this on my report, but we are starting to throw around decommissioning Stony Brook altogether with the metering system, with the MIUs and ETRs, and just going back to manual reads. We're really starting to look into this. So as we come up to pilots, it's going to be in Stony Brook. So we're starting to really look at just decommissioning all of Stony Brook.
And is that just because, just the level of effort to continue? Yeah.
And that area has been a problem since the day it was installed. So we're just looking to just take it all out. We're just going to go to manual reading there.
On the, you're talking about the current meters?
Yes. Well, the meters will stay, we're just going to manually read them.
So have you readjusted? So we may have to make an adjustment to budgeting because that's going to require more time.
Well, the reason they're doing this is it's practical because his crew's spending that much time going out and changing out the meter reading equipment. So they're like, we might.
So
as
you're
well
thinking
just
it
go
might
run
be from a labor of wash and resource time allocation because you're spending that much time out there, might as well go ahead and manual read it. So you're not anticipating any additional.
What's your basis? You made a statement about Stony Brook has had a problem.
It's always been a problem.
What differentiated Stony Brook from anybody else?
We don't know. We've never been able to fully get it right.
Was Stony Brook done first?
No. Gateway Greens.
Gateway Greens was.
And that'll be the area when we go to that route, that's where we'll pilot it at.
So you're essentially going to take 777 meters times 2,
MIUs.
water and
MIUs, just taking the MIUs out.
and just going to read
Just
right
manually.
off the ETR direct on a monthly or a bi-monthly basis.
Since we added the 2 new positions that we got approved, we've put 2 people every day on the metering system and we have made no gains. If anything, we're going backwards. It's just not happening.
Well, more to come on that discussion.
Yes.
So thanks, Kenny. Anything else you got?
Yes, lift station 7. You want to show them the pictures? Lift station 7 is where KOP line is going to go. This is going to go from the sleeper station to, you want to hit on that front one? Right there. This is lift station 7. Most people probably doesn't even know it exists. It's right on Griffith Drive across from 7-Eleven. We call it 7-Eleven station. There's a big 8-foot hedge of viburnum in front of them. Those are all going to have to come out, and 8 cabbage palms on each side of them that are going to have to come out. We got a right-of-way permit for the county and an LDO, and one of their stipulations that we had to apply and have received a vegetative removal permit to remove these trees.
Just a question. Can these be relocated?
Yes. I would say the cabbage palms can be, we can relocate them
So that
relatively.
might be a nice solution for end of,
High maintenance. High maintenance.
See, if you click on the next one, you kind of see it from behind and where we're going with all of this. That's going to be the new panel, and in front of that is going to be the new bypass pump. And this is going to get a bypass pump. 16-inch force main is going right in front of it. And then we are going to add fencing and a driveway around the station. This station is going to become, going from it's a master station, it pumps right into the plant, but it gets a very broad flow, but it doesn't have a lot. When KOP line goes online, we're going to start seeing some.
KOP goes north, but it loops around and comes back into this
KOP line,
station.
all the flow from KOP line will go to 7.
that's great.
So there's another, I put one more picture on there really, but what we're basically going to do is basically give the station a complete facelift. It's going to be, most people probably don't even know it's there because it's so buried in those viburnum bushes, but all that's going to have to come out. It'll be similar to Stony Brook, the master station, what we did at the Stony Brook master station. Driveway, fence, bypass pump, the whole shot. And it was rehabbed in 2019. This was a real problem one. But everything is set up for it to go.
Build a concrete pad like we do the other ones to be able to pull in the.
Yeah, so every time we pull into that station in the summertime, especially, it's wet.
Wet.
It just makes a big giant mess. So we can
Right.
roll right in on the side road, right into onto the driveway.
Kenny, how many palms do you say that, 7? How many palm trees that you're gonna be removing
8.
there? 8?
8 cabbage palms and all the viburnum that surround
Yeah.
that station.
That's diamond.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, you keep pulling that out.
And another one for the next meeting, I asked Tony directly for a legal opinion on the sewer cleanup. And this is going to be a pretty big issue for us, and we're going to be asking for direction how we want to go about this. I will include in the agenda the letter that I sent to Tony that kind of spurred the whole thing, and Tony has formed his legal opinion, and we're going to be presenting that to the board.
What's the issue?
Who's the 4-inch sewer level, and where we take responsibility and where the residents take responsibility.
It's at the property line. Always is, always has been. When it goes on across that right of way line, it's property owners.
So,
Okay, can I ask one thing too with the skeleton of this frame and everything? How much of this work are consultants doing or contractors versus our staff?
For this project,
Yes.
the contractor will be doing the fence and bypass.
Okay.
Everything else staff will be doing. That's
We'll
really
cover-
good.
We'll be covering that again at the next agenda item for the lift station.
Do you have to put in an expanded wet well? That.
This station is built
easier.
this was built in 1986, and it was built to be one of the bigger lift stations we
Expanded.
have, but it just doesn't have the flow. KOP line goes in there, and it's going to become a very, very busy station.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure we're clear that what Kenny and his team, what he's been trying to build out is more internal capability to do work in-house as opposed to farming out and paying that contractor price. So that's why I think it was really important to call out how much majority of this work was done by
Our
staff.
electrician.
Electrician, did you lay the pad? What,
We'll do the driveway.
yeah, all of
Fencing the contractor has to do, and the actual installation of the bypass pump.
Yeah.
Everything else we take care of. Panel,
that's
all that.
awesome.
so I do have a question, because I know you mentioned that they can be saved, those 8 cabbage palms. Because soon enough, we're gonna have 13, I'm just counting it, 14, 15 more that will be coming down for the 7-Eleven.
The cabbage palm, or the,
Because I'm just looking at cabbage palms. And I know you mentioned about maintenance, but we're already paying for maintenance because they're already there, so they're already included in the contract. So if we remove them and place them anywhere else, there will be no increase of maintenance because we're already paying for maintenance on that. So I know for a fact that there's 2 areas. One is near is actually Stony Brook. There's a cabbage palm right off the entrance. Now I don't know. Joe may be able to answer. I know I don't know if it's on the Stony Brook side or in the Gateway side, but instead of us purchase one, we can just put one there. Would you be able to tell, Jim, do you know which one I'm talking about? You know which one I'm talking about? There's a dead one there. And then I think there's a few others that they're declining. They
Yeah.
may need replacement, so we may want to
Yeah.
talk to
Yeah.
it about.
So, and I love the idea of us repurposing
Okay.
where we can. We don't need to decide where they go today, but
Exactly,
I think we've all agreed.
But there are a few declining
Yeah.
ones, and I know there's one or two that are
Yeah.
totally dead right now.
And these are aged, but they're,
Yeah,
let's call them
so-
mature, and they could go somewhere. I don't know if you necessarily put them on the
That's
main road, but
State Street, Florida too.
Yeah.
It's the same
Yeah.
farm.
Yeah.
They're very hardy, so they can handle the transplant, because I've done 100.
so, yeah, so let's repurpose those, and, you know, if staff has recommendations on where to put them, that's fine. Okay. Thanks, Kenny. Appreciate it. Hey, and thanks for not asking for money today.
He's not done.
I always get nervous when you step up to the podium.
We're sending
so,
Felix for that.
Brian?
Good afternoon, Brian Brashear, Public Works Manager. Belle's not here. This is kind of her monthly stormwater report she did around the ponds. Her and Mr. Gepper did some ride-alongs, kind of looked at some different stuff around the ponds. I think he had some issues with Silver Lakes that we've been addressing, that we know about the washouts due to spraying out the littorals. She kind of did this one. This was a June report. Just like I say, went through it. There's a few things on here that she highlighted. If you're not aware of the conservation area, we put some signs up over there to keep the golf course folks from running through our conservation area. It's par 3 Ed on the back 9. You probably know where I'm talking. We've kind of taken care of that shortcut. The maintenance guys just love to run right through it. So we put up signs and other stuff, basically let them know, stay out of it. It's conservation area.
If you run across any titles with a DB on it, just let me know. Probably got a couple over there.
Like I say, she's went through and been working with Aquagenics. I know she's been riding around a lot with Jim and other folks with Aquagenics and checking out the ponds and everything on them. We've had a few littoral requests. As usual, it's in the Hampton or Silver Lakes where folks want those sprayed out.
Bob, when you did that walkthrough, is there anything that jumped out at you as far as, you know, vendor management, any oversight?
Yeah,
Curious.
I was disappointed that we have to tell Aquagenics what the width of the band of the littorals that are allowed. We generally say in Pelican 8, 12 feet. There were some that were far over 20 feet. And
They're way over that.
yeah, and my question to at the comment was, you know, we shouldn't have to go to them and say, hey, you're not doing your job.
I mean,
You know,
we can give them a measuring tape or something.
they don't need that, Doug. They're not even
And
close. Yeah,
that was
right.
being
But
facetious.
we could actually, so that was the biggest thing that I saw from a maintenance point of view.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't know that that's in their contract. I don't think we ever went that far.
Well, I was assuming we had the same contract
Yeah.
language we have in Pelican.
I don't
So
think
that
we
is an
Can you
understanding.
confirm that?
And
We
they
have
do-
it at 12 feet.
And
We
they
do have 8 to
respond
12
to it.
feet.
We have 8
Okay.
to 12.
Yeah. And
I
they
mean,
do
to me, that's
respond
something
to
that's
it.
clearly indicated. It
Yes.
can be calculated, and that's
That's
something that we
mathematically
should not have
easy
to
to
follow.
do.
We should not have to follow up on that. Now, granted, we might be able to argue on a couple feet, you know, every once in a while. but the
No,
fact
we're
that it's-
talking about when there's
Yeah.
gross violations.
Brian, the pond, I saw the aquagenics guy, but he was doing the wetland, but he was going to talk to the lake guy. The interconnect pond on the west side of the driving range, that little canal that goes up along Callaway Greens. Now that the lakes have come up, the water has gone in there. And the other day, it was just total moss and algae the full length. Nobody had been in there doing anything. No spraying, no nothing.
I'll have
So-
to ask him, 'cause I know he does it monthly.
Okay.
I'll check with it.
Yeah,
If you-
that's the
if you
only one
find
I've
stuff
seen.
like that, please take pictures, because everybody tells me there's problems and I got all this, and guess what? I go out and evaluate it. It's a little 2% down this end of the pond and the rest of the pond's fine.
This
Everybody
one-
only shows you what their little 2%
Yeah,
looks
the
like.
rest of the ponds, at least in Gateway Greens that I've been watching on the golf course, they are in pretty good shape,
Other than the one that I know Chris wrote up about, what, hole 17 or 16? That the issue is, that's the erosion coming off into the pond.
Yeah, without no silt fence, it's
Oh,
just bare soil.
that's hole 17, yeah. Yeah,
They're
Club-
working on that.
Club went out there and put in that we call it, the sand gravel, coquina mixture. And every time it rains, just washes it
out.
right into the lake.
But Chris addressed that. And the other issue is the grass clippings, and
Well,
We've
the clippings are
addressed that.
still on the road.
we know,
I don't understand that.
we're
And it-
trying.
It was funny because they were talking about, someone said we could put it on the road. I said, the road belongs to the master association of the right of way. So who's giving you,
It's theirs.
the golf club, that section back there?
From West Links West, it was given by WCI to the country club for $1.
Well, the only person they're gonna flood now is themselves.
But
The
it
valley
is,
gutter won't
well,
drain.
as far as I'm concerned, it's even more the club's problem because it's a issue with South Florida Water Management District. Whether they own it, we own it, or whoever owns it, you can't go out there and blockade it with 10-foot high mulch. Good.
Okay.
So I do have a question just for Bob. Bob, the ones that you saw that were 20 plus, was it Hampton and Silver?
It was Silver, Pond 85. There were areas on Pond 85 that were just really bad.
Well, you were over at Hidden Links on Pond 128.
Well, I
It's
went,
gotta be
I
at
went
least
to 3 of
30
them this week, yeah.
That's gotta be
So you
30
haven't-
feet out in the water.
Okay.
I have not seen everything
Yeah.
by far. We spend 4 hours each week to go and look at some.
Yeah. And your plan is continue to do some of those
Yeah,
rounds with them? Okay, great. And I'm curious, there's a couple in Stony Brook that I have some concerns with, just as far as some of that littoral
Yeah,
expansion.
and the focus has been up to now, the ones that were refurbishing the pond banks. That's what we're looking at. But some of these things are just so egregious as,
That project that Met Tower just is 99% done with at Mahogany Isles. Fantastic.
So
Looks absolutely fantastic.
and I'm not sure.
They
if
did a
this-
great
I'm not
job.
sure if this is a question, Brian, for you or if Joe, you might answer. But if there's lake bed or vegetation, let's say, and I'm not talking about littorals, I'm talking trees or something along the lake bank. If that tree dies or if it gets diseased or something, whose responsibility is that?
Which one you talking about? There's two of them over there I know of. One we're gonna address when we do the link bank restoration. And Al has that pine tree schedule. I think it's a pine tree to be changed out on 59.
Yeah, that's,
What you're
there was,
talking
there was two. One was actually, I think, in the lake bed
Correct.
that died, and another one I think was just run over. or
We're
something.
aware of both.
Okay.
One of them will be changed out and the other one, we and Joe agreed upon, we're going to do it because it's on the other side over on 82 side.
Yeah, okay.
When that
I
gets done, we'll take.
I didn't know.
I don't think I've seen a pond yet that we don't have infringement into the lake maintenance easement with trees and or gardens or everything else. I mean, apparently that has not been a priority over the years here and the owners keep pushing to
Encroaching
the
in.
pond.
Yeah. And then last thing, I know we had talked about utilization of the drone to do some of these lake flybys. If we,
I know I've had Elle out practicing.
okay.
She's got to get
Yeah.
better at it.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose my drone over some pond in the middle of nowhere.
Well, I mean, we've had that drone for how long now?
I know.
And I don't think we're utilizing it, which I think is a waste. And maybe we need to cross-train multiple people.
We have to do it early in the morning because in the rains in the afternoon, you're not going to fly that.
Yeah.
And if it's a
So
windy day,
wind
my
you're not
recommendation
gonna
is,
fly it on a windy day.
my recommendation is to, let's potentially cross-train some,
We can
you know,
do that.
multiple people so we can
Hello,
get
Jim.
utilization.
Ready.
Yeah, Jim.
Well, put pilot on the agenda or on the
Yeah.
budget.
There was a guy in Lehigh, not
need a
not to
pilot.
derail the meeting, but he was flying his drone and it lost control of it and literally he was chasing it in his vehicle. He couldn't get it to stop and then it just flew over the trees and he lost it. But
Brian, speak back on Bob. I know, and maybe you know, Tony was to send out a letter of encroachment in one, and then also a few letters for Silver Lakes residents. Do you know if he did? Did he copy you or Chris on it?
I haven't seen.
Do you know anything about it?
Encroachment in Silver Lakes.
Well, no, one was an encroachment. I don't remember exactly where, but then there was a letter for 2 or 3 residents in Silver Lakes that we had an issue that he
They've
was
been
gonna.
taking matters in their own hands.
Yeah.
so here's what I would say. If Tony is drafting up some letters of encroachment, maybe just ask Elle if there's any others that we need to include in that.
These were basically, when we walked it, we noticed homeowners were spraying out by the pond on the road.
Right.
And I mean, literally just killing stuff out. So
Yeah.
we gave those to
Okay.
Tony to.
I know there was some specific examples.
Yeah. And
I was just saying, if we're going to be doing it, if we have other ones that Elle is aware of, or Bob, anything that you have noticed, get those over to Tony, let's let him knock it all out in one shot. So, okay. Anything else, Brian? Any other questions for Brian?
He's got an encroachment issue here.
I was later, but if you want to do it,
Oh,
it's up to you.
Yeah, just a question of whether the refrigerators got turned off. Did Mark Addison do that or?
That would be a negative. I've
Okay.
asked him to come do it. He didn't get to it. I've asked him again. I said, you got till Friday and I'm gonna unplug them.
Yeah.
So that'll be tomorrow. They'll be unplugged. His drinks will be warm, but
Don't worry about the drink so much as mold and things because they
Well, and if you
remove
unplug
everything,
it
yeah.
and there's stuff in there, then we got to
There
deal
is
with
stuff in there.
smell and other stuff.
Oh,
So-
yeah, there's
food
stuff
we'll
in
take
there.
out.
Yeah, okay.
I just leave the drinks.
Don't we have a deposit? Isn't that,
He doesn't pay for the refrigerator as far as electric for the,
well, that's what I mean,
No.
like a deposit that we clean it, we have somebody clean it and take care of it, and then we just remove it out of his money. I mean,
Well-
if we gave him plenty of options to do it and.
I don't know if there's a deposit, but we could charge for a
It-
I'm
cleaning
gonna
thing.
email him again tomorrow morning. He told me he's gonna come take care of it. I
'Cause
haven't
I-
been by there today, but I know as of Monday. it'll be
Okay.
done.
I think.
We
yeah.
need to do it. We need to
Clock's
turn them off.
ticking.
Why waste that electric all summer?
Did you? I felt like somebody had another question for Brian, but I could
Do
be
you
wrong.
want to do that LME or do it
you want to
later?
do the?
Oh, yeah,
LME
yeah,
right
yeah. Let's
now?
go ahead and do the LME. So that is item
4A.
4A. So we're just going to jump to 4A real quick. This,
We have a homeowner over in the Eagle Point that is requesting that they encroach 11 feet on the LME to put a fence. You would have a black aluminum fence on the backside. Me and Elle looked at it. I mean, we do have about 22 feet back there, the LME.
I got 23.
We do have room to get around it. I did advise him, there's a little tree that would have to be removed. I said, but I could not give you a definite answer. That has to go in front of the board. We worked with Tony. We got the legal, everything worked out. I really don't like to set precedents, but I understand the guy has a dog and he wants to let the dog out. And if you come look at his house, that LME starts probably from here, that table from his back door. He
3
has
feet.
no yard at all.
Sorry, about 3 feet.
So, I mean, it's to the point. I'll let you,
Do we have, question, does Eagle Point have a free roaming on pets?
Invisible fence, that's true.
So then why does he need a fence? If
He wants
if you can't let
private-
the dog, if you
well-
can't let the dog roam free on the yard, he has to be on a leash. What's
Well,
the fence do?
you can leave the dog, I presume, inside the fence.
No, you can't do that. At least in ours, you
I
can't.
don't-
do
Yeah, not an attended pet.
Can't be
Can't do
unattended.
that.
I don't know.
But what I would do is, one, I don't want to make sure that we don't get in trouble from that
Well,
association
but
coming
we're
back
not-
saying, why did
we're
you
not the-
allow him to do
so here's
this?
what I would say. We're not the enforcement of that. The request is for encroachment in the LME for this fence. That's all that we're making the decision
Well,
on.
then-
What he does within that fence
Well,
is
I think,
beyond our jurisdiction.
you know, that's buried.
Plus, I
in
think it's a
sand.
privacy
But
fence on both sides.
the issue is though, is that pond has not yet gone through any lake bank restoration yet. So if we would allow them to encroach, because we did this over at Gateway Greens on 2 or 3, it's their responsibility and their cost to remove it if and when the contractor comes in to work in the LME.
And we've advised him of that.
If you're doing that, I don't have a problem.
And we
Because I
should have
told
it
him-
in writing, but that's fine.
Oh, it is. And I told him, I
Yep.
said, if we have to come through here and it's farther up, your fence will have to be on your.
Well,
own.
and that's
So-
regardless of whether it's lake bank maintenance or if there's
Any other
in
reason.
an emergency or any use,
Yeah.
we still retain the right to leverage that.
As long as they know that. I
Correct.
Don't
It's,
have a problem.
we dotted the i's, crossed the t's, thanks to Tony, so.
So we need a,
Well, let me just counsel any issues with this?
Just on the agenda packet, the agreement that's in here is not the one that, this is not the right signature block. I don't know if we have a different one. But this one, we revised this week, so there should have been, I think, Ms. Harris has the updated.
She sent it to the homeowner. We haven't got it back yet.
Okay, so we just want to make
It was
sure that
some
if you do
minor
approve
So
this,
this is
so-
with conditions that the updated,
yeah, on the updated signature block.
updated signature block be updated.
And I would point just to the earlier comment, paragraph 3 is what you're talking about, this idea that they would have to remove these improvements if the district has to use the easement.
I just want to
Okay.
make sure that it was for whatever reason.
Remove it and pay the cost to put it back. We don't have any obligation at all.
Yeah, it does say owner agrees to pay.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
I'd make, just anything else?
No, are we good? Yeah, so
I'd make the motion to approve the request for the LME encroachment from the property owner at Lot 30 on Eagle Point, Phase 1.
do you mind adding with the contingency that the updated signature block be
Okay.
complete?
Okay, I'll second that.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Thanks, Brian. That's it for you, right?
That's it. Thank you.
So wrapping Brian up, we'll go into our action items, which we have just completed 4A, which is fantastic. PPAC nomination,
Motion to approve.
motion,
I'll
second,
second.
Second.
third. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations. 4C, fire hydrant replacement.
Told you it was too soon, he'd be back.
Feel hard on you.
I told you he'd be back.
Good afternoon, Felix Reynoso, Utility Field Supervisor. Since the utility relocation for the Commerce Lakes Roundabout is complete, I see we can move forward with replacing all 4 1986 Mueller fire hydrants on Commerce Lakes, which are more or less inoperable.
I was gonna say, do they work?
19.
Well,
35
if they
years
go
old.
down, there's no parts to replace or fix them. So we're going to replace them with brand new American Darlings, which is the most common fire hydrant we have in the system for Gateway. This is scheduled for July 31st, a Saturday, so that we don't interrupt the businesses on Commerce Lakes in between West Links and Gateway Boulevard, because we do have to shut down the 16-inch water main to replace also the 4 isolation valves that go along with these fire hydrants.
Motion to approve.
I second.
Any
For
discussion? Questions? I have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Felix, how many more of these are gonna be coming up at Griffin and Gateway Boulevard?
These should be the last 4 in this location.
No, I'm not talking about here. I'm talking about the next roundabout. We're gonna be doing this again, because I'm gonna guess they're same age.
I'm not sure on that. One on the corner.
Okay, that's good.
We had an agreement with South Carolina.
We could use the fire hydrants as decoration for the dog park. Instead of those faces they have there with pineapples.
So Flavia says, where's Brian? See if we can repurpose some of those fire hydrants for the dog park.
Instead of the faces with the pineapples.
Yeah.
It would just look
Oh,
a
I
little
just
bit
got
better.
That would be funny though. Felix, good to see you here at the board meeting today. We've heard some really great things about your work and everything you're doing. So good to see
You
you.
are doing a good job.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Keep it up.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Thank you. Moving forward, 4D, lift station rehabilitation.
I knew he was gonna ask for money. I knew he was gonna ask for money.
See, I like
He
how he
just
said,
said
Felix,
Felix,
yeah.
so he did.
we see Leslie, we see Felix. Let's see how you are.
Say again, with completion of the utility relocation for Commerce Lakes Roundabout, we can now proceed with number 26 Master Lift Station rehabilitation. This station has 2 30 horsepowers that are also going to be rehabbed with it. We installed these pumps in 2015. They actually just came today. We are going to basically rip out the inside of this station and redo it. And I have some pictures for you and some very telling information. When I get the first set of pictures. We did this earlier this year at Ritchie Station, lift station 21 on Championship Drive. We had this exact same problem. In 2009, 2008, all 3 of these lift stations were rehabbed. And one of the major issues they did was they did not secure the HDPE pipe. And what happens is from the top of the well to the bottom of the well, if it is not secured onto the actual well walls, it bows. It creates a bow down. And what it does is it pinches the base elbow, and that causes really bad blow by. And I've got some pictures here in a video to show you exactly what I'm seeing here. With the station B1, we can now isolate the station, which before we couldn't do. And as from the roundabout, go down to the first picture.
This is the one.
Right up our stage,
one
this is the
here?
first one right there. Okay, this is station B1. And what I really wanted to illustrate to you here is if you look at those little red tick marks, top, bottom, pump 1, pump 2, that is the pump turning on, turning off every day, all day. And what's happening is we're getting 132 starts and stops for each pump every day. And the big reason for this is the blow by. If you go to the next picture, station B9, same thing. What those big pictures with the big waves are us running the Thompson pump yesterday that we just installed there. We do that as maintenance. But if you look at those tick marks, it's time, it's turning on, running, turn it off, turn on. And it's basically doing this all day long. And what's happening is the pinch is causing blow by. So the pump is working almost 3 times as hard than what it has to. Now that the Commerce Lakes project is done, we can isolate this station. It's not that big of a deal for us to do, whereas before it was a 3-ring circus and we had to shut a station down. If you want to go to the next station, this is Championship Drive, Station 21. Prior to us refitting this, it looked exactly like the other two, but if you see, those lines have dramatically opened up. And where it really becomes telling, if you go to the next picture, that's the electric bill. Now we get our annual curve in the summertime, but if you look at June, this is the first month we did it in May. June, you see a dramatic drop in that electric bill because the pumps aren't running as much, they're not working nearly as hard. If you do those numbers each month, and this will vary, but it's a really good kind of picture I'm going to paint for you, is that you save $52 a month. If we get $52 a month in savings, that's $624 a year. If you do it over a 5-year spread, that's $3,100 we'll save in electric, just in electric for this repair. I mean, and what it is, it's a defect because of the HDPE piping not being secured to the well. So that's a really big thing now, that when we do our rehabs, we make sure that these things are secured, because it just over time, it just bows. And when the pump and the pipe come together, it creates a crack. And if you go to that video, you really see it. Go ahead, if you want to play it. Watch what happens when this pump kicks on. The blow by on these 30 horsepowers is just dramatic. You get it? It's really telling when you see it.
Is it an
What
embedded
are you,
video?
what are you referring to as a blow by? I've not heard that.
You'll see it in a
terminology.
second. What happens is where the pump
Yeah.
and the pipe.
At the
connect.
flange?
Yes, and then because it's not secured, it bows. So you get a gap and it blows
Okay.
out the side.
Go to slideshow and see if
It doesn't.
Doesn't it have
pipe.
a lock arrangement at the bottom?
It's a bracket.
Okay.
It sits on it.
Well,
And we're gonna replace all of this.
Why can't
Go
we?
into slideshow and then click it from slideshow. There we go.
Wasting
energy.
Oh, yeah.
Question, why can't we do this? If you're having trouble with cycling, do we have enough room in that well just to adjust the floats? Let's
Oh,
just
yeah,
take,
we've done that.
we've taken the floats up to the maximum
It won't help.
and we're still having that much cycling?
What's basically happened is the pipe, the pipe coming out of the well has become so bowed and it's sitting on a stainless steel base plate.
Yeah.
And when that bows, it just separates. There's nothing we can do.
Okay.
Even if we filled that thing halfway and the weight of the water holding that pump down, it just does not stop.
Okay, this brings up a good question, and I totally agree with what needs to be done, but I've got a concern. Until we get an answer or a response, Chris, from our banks and on our Worthington, are we sure that B1's not going to be involved in that project? My thought is let them pick up the tab.
Well, they haven't put an actual application to us yet. It's all been preliminary.
Well, we know they're going to put in about 500 gallon minute, which is 50% higher than the capacity of this pump. So we're going to have to do something if that water goes that direction. We don't know which way they're coming.
If anything, it would go to Commerce Lake Station. It would gravity flow into the Commerce Lakes sanitary sewer and then
So
flow into that
we
back
need
to
to
the
get somebody in here and engineer once we get their numbers, because you've got now 2 pumps feeding into common force mains. We need to find out what the impact of that is, because if one pump isn't going to be able to run because the head is so high created by the other pump, we're going to have a wet well that's going to start filling up and alarms going off because you can't turn both on at the same time. Or if you do, what'll happen is that head goes up so high, the flow rate drops off significantly.
And
we
you
won't be
overwhelm
able
the
to get rid of the water.
And you overwhelm the plant.
We need somebody to, the minute that they come in, but somehow, some way, we need to get with banks and tell them, hey, guys, you need to let us know quickly what your plan is, because we're going to have costs that we're going to incur on making changes to B1 that could be redundant.
And I put the engineer for banks in touch with Tetra Tech because they have the model, which was updated 3 years ago. And I told them to get with Tetra Tech and they could pay Tetra Tech to do their analysis.
Well, keep in mind, you've got a 900 gallon per minute, correct me if I'm wrong, a 900 and 1,000 gallon per minute, two pumps setting 200 yards apart, both pumping into a 6 and 12-inch force main. They come down here to the intersection at Griffin, and it's soon going to go into the 16-inch, thank God. We're trying to put a round peg in a square hole.
Well, what impact does that have on us today versus?
Making a decision whether we want to spend the money right now to do this until we hear what they're doing, is that we may not have to spend it.
Well, or it may adjust the solution path.
Was this a deficiency in engineering in the initial install?
Yeah, I think it's
This
growth,
happened.
Bob.
This
Okay.
is.
A lot of
this
growth.
Over the years.
Okay, it wasn't that it was improperly
No.
secured at the
When
beginning.
when they switched over and everybody started using HDP, which is a really good product, it's impervious to sewer.
Okay.
They did not bracket those pipes
Yeah, it's
into the
old.
well to secure them. And over the time, they're just bent. And that's what's causing us. to
So
have
getting back to
I don't want to stop
Okay.
a need. I just want to see if we could get them to tell us what their plan is, because if it involves B1 and they're coming into B1, then
Could be some cost share or. That's.
I just have a hard time seeing if we, let's say, add a 500 gallon a minute, that's 1,000, 900 and 500. That's 2,400 gallon a minute going through a 6 and a 12. Those pipes are going to be whistling Dixie with all that flow going through them. It scares me. I'd much rather be able to go back and tell them, guys, the way you get your you-know-what to the sewer plant is you come up the FPL Eastman and go in the back door.
That's the best option. You go up the
And keep
FPL.
them off this mess and not create any
Takes it
more
out of the-
problems for us.
Southern.
So if there is a preferred approach that we're going to be recommending, that doesn't impact this work being done.
This is work that needs.
It's got to be done.
Okay, all right. I we just want to make sure I follow where you were going
It may,
with
it may be more than this when we get done.
Right, right. So
but-
you're not saying slow this down. You're saying do this, but there may be some additional considerations.
Yeah,
down the road.
that
Okay.
whole south end is starting to, with the development of Worthington on the sanitary sewer side and the irrigation side and the potable side, it's got issues on all three of those.
Okay.
Stormwater, it's got major issues.
I don't know if I added the actual cost for the vaults. In addition to this, our staff now, there it is right here. This right here is the cost to replace all the valves in the vault, check valves, the plug valves, and manifold.
And does that need to be added to the
No,
$50,000
this is
number?
included in here. It's just the material costs that Laura got with, when we got with Ferguson, that she got us this on the government program. Our staff can do this now. And this is a really big savings for us, is because we can go in there and do this. You're knocking $20,000 off of an average rehab that we're able to do. And we're gonna do this across multiple stations.
Are you saying these costs are 17.5 plus 14,000? That's the 50?
Yes.
And what I would say too is, and as we move forward, it really would be a good idea for us to just jot down where these cost savings are come in, because if we've built out internal capability, just so at the end of the fiscal year, we can come back and say, we had $150,000 in cost avoidance because of capability we've been able to build up in-house. Now, again, doesn't really matter to probably us, because this is the direction that we've been going in, but it'd be great to be able to tell our residents that we've got those cost savings, cost avoidance in place.
And with Stony Brook coming up next year, we were getting bids at about 70,000. And with us doing these vaults that Felix and the field staff do now, you're gonna see another $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 come off of that bid, because we can do that.
Well, and again, when it comes down for merit review, performance review, pay increases, easy to have that conversation when you're talking about how much dollars that, we're saving internally.
And that's something that Felix brings to the table with his experience. And he can.
I'm not promising you anything, Felix. I'm just telling you.
I save the money, you save the
Okay.
Yeah, but
This is what we've been angling for.
you want to,
Bring this in-house.
you do want those savings to be captured somewhere.
Yeah, you do. Absolutely.
memorialize them. Absolutely correct.
Any questions, additional questions for Kenny?
Motion to approve the request in the amount of $50,000 for the rehabilitation of pump stations 26 and 2.
I second that.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks.
Kenny, thanks, because I think that's the first time the board's seen a video of poop pumping at a meeting.
That was enlightening. I was really wondering about that blowout though.
Kenny really wanted us to see that. Like, yeah, he really wanted us to see it.
Right.
Anybody gonna own up to ownership?
Okay, are you pulling up the utility rate study?
Yes.
Okay.
And Tony and Jeff, are you online?
Good afternoon. This is Tony Hairston, and it'll just be myself today.
Okay, hello, Tony. It's
Hi,
nice.
Chris.
And we had a discussion previously, and basically what we're going to do today is just present the latest draft for the rate study. It's really just to show the board where we are and get any comments. We're finalizing that. We're putting some data together also on that master meter equivalent to look at the equitable use of the number of units per that meter and the charges. And we will be bringing that forward in August to the board to get final approval and also set the public hearing for the rates and also move forward with adjustment of connection fees. And the only item I'll ask the board for any action on is after this presentation is to make a motion to approve us to notice, which will be to advertise the amendment to the rules, which will be an amendment to change the rates, charges, and fees in the utility department.
Are we going to get a copy of this?
Yeah, we don't have this in our package, right?
I have one right here.
And then the second question is, any particular reason it's 2020 water irrigation wastewater instead of 2022?
I think that's when we started.
Okay, that's because it's that old.
The rate case. And I'll also mention on the conservation side is Babcock Ranch and their latest rate case. When the Water Management District declares drought conditions, the day they do that, their irrigation rates go up 25% across the board. And that's the way they address water conservation.
For a set duration or?
Well, as long as that drought order from the Water Management District is in effect, which a lot of times they go to 1 day a week watering.
See, I hesitate doing anything like that to burn the existing average complying bill paying user.
Right.
What I want to do is, since we can't fine, let's go after the ones that are guilty and make them pay.
And you'll see there's an adjustment with the tier. And Tony, I have the presentation up. I think you can see it.
Yeah, well, so a couple of things. First of all, myself and Jeff Wilson were in person back in January, and substantially the same presentation. I think we tweaked some things, and then there was an updated presentation in April that Jeff gave. I was not at that meeting, but Jeff gave through the web like this. And what's in front of you here, I really, can just answer any questions. This is the same exact presentation, except the date changed to July 1 as was in April. So, I'm happy to go through any or all of this. I'll just say, if you want to see maybe a comparison, because you're funding a lot of projects and with a couple of debt issues, if you can just go to slide 13, is just a comparison for at least water and wastewater with others. And it's there's a model that goes out through 2025. There it is, that one. And so we don't know where everyone else is going to be in 2025, but we know where they are today. So we have a comparison here of a 7,000 gallon water and sewer user today, and then the proposed rates, which we're going to be, this first increase is going to be this year, and it looks like we're going to push it back until the beginning of January 2022, but it brings this typical bill from $93.75 to $101.72. And you can see it's, there's several utilities that are substantially higher currently. And with the future phases, as I mentioned, and as we presented back in January and April, that there's phase increases through 2025. So even, today it's certainly lower than these others, and in 2025 it would continue to be actually lower than these others. It doesn't even get up to where Northport is in 4 years of where they are today, or Cape Coral, Lehigh Acres, or any of these others. So since I think this was presented a couple times already, I'm happy to answer any questions on this. And there's two things that Chris had sent out. This is one of them. The other one is the connection fee. We're asked to just do a very high level review of connection fees, and that's something new that hasn't been presented. So I guess just starting with these monthly rates that were presented back in January and April, with this comparison and the bill impacts, just to see if there's any questions or additional comments on what had been presented prior, because there's nothing new here since April.
Mr. Tingle?
Yeah, a couple of questions, Tony. I thought I read something that indicated that we were having issues on the water side relative to revenue. Is it that we are not selling enough water? Is that the issue, or is it that we're paying more to the county than what we're billing to the residents? What's the issue on the potable side?
Yeah, and that's correct. It's really capital driven, I think, more than anything else, that these improvements that there's a slide that describes the improvements are driving it. And you're already, if you go to slide 9, please, those are the actual increases. But yeah, slide 9. Yeah, there you go. See, currently let's start with water is the upper left-hand corner and wastewater is the bottom left. And so it's probably easier if we start with water. The stack column is operating expenses. Is that first? I can't hit the cursor, but the light color, yeah, that's operating expenses, and then you have the debt service and transfers and capital. And so currently, with that solid line going across is your gross revenue at existing rates, and it's kind of flattened out because your irrigation is going to go, or excuse me, your consumption might go up and down a little bit, but you have a little bit of growth, but that's basically flat. Your operating is going up, and certainly your capital and your debt service is going up. So currently, just starting in 2022, you don't have enough for next year. You don't have enough even to cover your operating, let alone your capital. So you're starting in a deficiency already. I think there were some things not in the previous rate study that we identified need to be covered from your water system. And in addition, there is additional capital improvements that have been identified since the last rate study as well. So you're already starting in a deficiency, I think, just because there were some things not in the prior rate study, and then the additional capital as well at the top. So we're phasing that in that dashed line over the period going into 2025 to correct that.
Question: I wasn't aware that we had any capital water improvements to make. I remember sewer and irrigation, but I don't remember any water.
And I pulled the budget and looked at it. As you can see, really the lion's share of that is that operating costs, which is our staff costs going up, and valves. And
well, I'm looking at the blue, which this is very hard to see on the chart we have on the screen. That light blue looks to me like capital.
Yeah, that's the ongoing capital, mostly replacements. And
$300,000. I wasn't aware of any capital needs in potable water for the next 3 years. But what's really scary is, if it is true, is that we're projected $1 million short on revenue on break even. Am I reading that right? That's scarier now. Huh?
Yeah.
By 2025, it's blossomed to a $1 million. That's more than $1 million.
Yeah, because you're going to face inflationary expenses. You're starting off in a deficit, and then with inflation and just who knows what inflation looks like, but we know that we're facing it now. hopefully it moderates, but there is inflation built in. We haven't updated that for what's happening this year, but hopefully that moderates. So there's inflation and a reason that's going up as well. The capital is mostly renewal and replacement. You know, you have assets that are going to need renewal and replacement and meter replacements and so forth. So it's just ongoing sustainable capital in there. And you're correct. The larger capital items that we identified are sewer and irrigation. So those are the newer items. You know, water is just starting off at a deficit. You know, as I said in the prior rate study, there were some things that weren't identified that we identified that the water needs to recover. So, you know,
Is there anything in this budget that you've allocated for our meter issues? Or are those over and beyond, should we have them? Have you got any money in that next 3-year period to 2025 for meter expense? Or are you at all? Chris, the question is, any meter expense projected in this budget?
There is not, and the bond will be retired in 2024 with the existing meter costs. So we were looking at that as a borrowing issue.
Okay.
So, but we do not have that included in there because there hasn't made a decision yet. We're just getting to that.
And then the second thing is there anything in this projection that would be impacted by Lee County Utilities raising, or have we gotten anything from them that says that the cost of water that we're paying at right now, what, $386 a thousand?
Right.
Is that going up to where that has not been taken into consideration?
The last meeting we had, they didn't have any plans to. They may be, but that was one of those items that we discussed in the budget where you said, why is this so high? We have that in there in case there is a hit in the middle of the budget year.
So bottom line to me, the 2025 projected revenue requirement, we're looking what looks like a 50% rate increase.
yeah, on water, it does have the most significant. It's a significant part of the rate increase. And that first chart I showed was the combined water and wastewater. So it's built into that increase.
Well, we've gone a long way over the last couple of years to try to make each of these utilities stand on their own. Water doesn't subsidize, nor is it subsidized by either wastewater or irrigation or any of those three. They all stand on their own, is what our decision was a couple of years ago. And so it looks like to me that the water is going to take a pretty good hit, and the others might have some improvements. The wastewater, I don't understand why wastewater is so radically different than water, since our water usage determines the wastewater cost. It's the same meter. I don't get that.
There's no increase in the costs on our wholesale cost of the wastewater. So it's really just the R&R where we're getting the money from to pay for those improvements for the valves.
And then my last question was, and I don't know if you were listening in on our discussion, but CDDs don't have the ability to fine, and we're having some real issues relative to potential future demand on our irrigation system, largely created by large volumes of irrigation water people are using that don't need to be.
Right.
The issue is that, can we come up with a tier, or did anybody suggest to you a tier? I don't want to burn the existing customer, meeting the average, but the guy out there using 45, 50,000 gallons a month for irrigation, which is double and triple, $3.60, I think was the number I saw a while ago on your chart. Yeah, here you go.
Yeah, and that one is where the tiers actually, the existing's at, I don't know if you can see it okay, the existing's at the top, and those are the rates at the top. But importantly though, is if you just look at the 3/4 or 5/8 by 3/4 inch row, that first row, 0 to 25, 25 to 50 and above 50, the proposed rates down below in that table are now 0 to 15, 15 to 30. And so that 30 is slightly above that second block and slightly above where your first block currently is. And then there's everything above 30. So
Yeah.
getting
What
to
I'm
those,
looking at is that rate per thousand for the 5/8 and 3/4 above 30,000. That 360, either take and leave that at 360 and introduce a new tier at, say, 50 and
right, right.
make it $10 a thousand. But somehow we got to stop
Gotta
these
be
people.
painful.
Huh? It's got to be painful. Yes. Because we can't find them.
Yeah. Yeah. You can get them with the meter though. You have the meter and the ability, that's your cash register.
Right.
We have a device they call a meter.
So I think when I look at it, your slide 13, where you're looking at single family residential water and sewer bills at 7,000 gallon, it's even with the increases, we're still only within the 40 percentile in comparison to other utilities. The first year looking at about approximate 8% increase with incremental increases over the next, well, to 2025. So the next, several years. So, I mean, I don't have any questions, and it makes sense to me.
And you see where again, those tiers were lowered, and we're basing that on consumption too of our customers. And so, we could raise that tier, it was $4, but again, we're doing it based on, revenue requirements.
I don't see why we would reduce.
Well, I was going to go the other way. Did you do an analysis on both our irrigation, our wastewater, and our water of our base rate? Instead of taking and burning bridges, because what we have here is we have, well, I'm going to guess 20% of our community is not here year round.
Mm.
They're not producing water. They're not consuming water. So they're not paying. But the capital facilities to handle them for the 6 months, 7 months they are here, they pay for it, and that's it. Let's take a look, or have we looked at, are we collecting enough money on the base side?
On an annual base?
The monthly base.
I mean, the
monthly base. Are we collecting enough revenue? Because they're obviously not meeting the consumption requirement.
Yeah. Well, I'll go back and look. I'll just say that there is a balance there, because obviously you have that base higher, you get more seasonal customers paying the readiness to serve component. But at the same token, you're relying less on usage charges, which goes against what we talked about on irrigation, and what you pay to Lee County as well is flow based. So,
What I'm talking about, Tony, is fixed and variable. I'd much rather see what our fixed costs are. Variable costs, I have no problem with that going to the rate schedule. You use it, you spend it, pay for it. But fixed costs are those things that whether you're here or not, we pay for.
Well,
don't put those over on the variable side, which means the only way of doing that is increasing the base rate.
Well, and I'm just curious too, and I don't know the answer to it, but have you ever seen any seasonal rates, or the rate varies depending on, time of year?
Nope.
No. Okay.
Nope. If you truly take and have your fixed costs covered by the residents via the base, we should be in really good shape, because our variable costs are nothing more than, for all practical purposes, a pass through of Lee County's costs.
Well, I think we're really close.
I think we're looking. I just want to make sure.
Directionally correct. I think we're directionally correct in this. Is there any other questions that we have, or any adjustments other than, Ed, what you've recommended?
No, I don't have any.
Okay. All right. Chris, do you have anything in closing?
No, we'll just take the comments from the board, and I say we'll be back in August to go through it and do a final adoption, and we'll set the public hearing in September.
Will it be live? Because this is very, very difficult for residents to come in and do via.
Oh, no, we need to do that.
This is not good.
Yeah.
No, and this was more, again, an update and to get your comments.
Today's
and move
fine.
forward. The final draft.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
But thanks, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Great work.
Also, as part of this, could we get you all to authorize the rulemaking process?
That's what I was going to do next.
Okay, sorry about that.
And that would be just to make a motion to authorize to do the noticing for the rulemaking.
I make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Excuse me, Chris.
Yes.
So
One other thing before you move on, Chris, I don't know if you want, we had the connection fee discussion. Did you want to save that or what?
Yeah, let's take a look at it
Let's
because
take a
Ms.
look at
Stink
that,
might
yeah.
have some comments on that too.
Okay.
Hold on, let me close this out.
Are you guys in touch with and aligned with our attorney, Tony Pierce, relative to this issue of defining collection fees and impact fees and all that other nonsense?
and specifically how that might change.
And how that might
due to
change.
legislation that's pending
Yeah.
or I think it's been approved yet, right?
Yeah, we've had some correspondence. We need to make sure we are right, and that's happening throughout the state, where the sort of semantics of connection fees vis-a-vis the both the statute and case law. It really seems to have a better tie to the case law than the statute, but we approach them as if the connection fees apply to the statute. Except for if you were to raise them, the statute now says, or the new bill says that if it's less than 25%, you have to do it in 2 equal increments. That's if it applies. So that's the only thing I don't know. Otherwise, everything is, it's already meets the statute. Whether it needs to or not is a legal question that we've heard from several other attorneys that it doesn't, but we always set the fees as if it does. It's notwithstanding, the biggest thing is how you can increase them or how quickly you can increase them. There's another slide, or there's a slide deck, about 4 slides, that looks very similar to the last one, except it says connection fee review. It's got the same date and everything. Do you have that? It's about a
What's on
5 deck slide.
Do we have a copy of what's on the slide? The visual, I don't see
That's
that.
what she went to get.
Oh, she went to get those? Question for you.
Sure.
I'm a page that's on the slide, and it's showing that our revised calculated connection fees, well, you got a little bit different than the recommended. The recommended connection fee for water, you're recommending $390, which is existing to stay at $390, correct?
Yeah, and if we can just talk off of this one. So that's, yes, what we saw is the district had a connection fee study done 3 years ago. And we looked at that and just affirmed the assets and the capital and everything, and used that data and just updated it for updated capital. And the water would have gone up, as you indicated, by $40, but the wastewater would have gone down by $40. And we just said, well, just why go through the hassle of fine tuning those if you have a small amount of growth to build out and they're going to have both services. But the irrigation is where we saw there was a difference. This doesn't, oh yeah, it's a recommended. It's going up by, I've got my sheet here.
Where
Your
did you,
existing 1660, yeah, $180. Can you scroll down just a tad? I don't see it on my screen, the bottom part of that. There we go. Yeah. So and this is a draft for discussion, and the question is it worth going through the rulemaking change to change your connection fees? And looking at the difference in the capital and all the other assumptions from what you just did 3 years ago versus now, the water and sewer, when you take them together, there's really no change when you match them against each other. And the irrigation, just working off the last discussion on the irrigation, we do see an increase. What we're looking at about $180, which is about 10% higher than where you are now, a little over 10%, actually 18 over 660. So it is an increase, and you could look at doing that with the remaining units you have. We estimate, what does it mean as far as connection fee revenue would be, about $99,000 given what we know right now.
This is
in total.
it's the question I've got is that are you aware that we have projected probably within the next 2 years, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 ERCs coming in?
Yeah, the number we have is 550, but we can look at it. I don't know if any of that's already paid connection fees or not. Because we did factor in growth into the rate study, but who pays connection fees, which are the one time coming in the door, might be different. And that 99,000 is based on 550.
the thing I'm having a problem with is the 7,117 ERCs underwater, 7,000 under wastewater, and 6,512 under irrigation. Where's the math that shows how that was done? Because I've never seen numbers like that. My numbers are substantially different than that.
Yeah, there again, this being a desktop analysis, we relied on the previous connection fee study, and our understanding of those numbers were still reliable. So we haven't, we have the math from the last study, but we have at this point put no effort into there. We're happy to, go further, dig further into there, but as far as we were understood that number was still good. So we haven't updated it as of now.
You send that information to Krista where you can get to me what up those three numbers are, because I've got real concerns on that. This was my background up north, and these numbers just seem to be exaggerated short of what the cost is of putting these things in. That I don't think these people are being charged and assessed enough money. Now, I know we have some limitations with these, the statute or this proposed rule and that 25%, but I know it. It's just, I was expecting to see something substantially greater than these numbers in the way of an increase in the connection fees. I mean, substantially greater.
And Mr. Tinkley, you have to remember too that we did that study, it was just a little more than 2 years ago, and some of that capital projects that we have now that we're funding were included already with that study.
Those were in there?
Yes, sir. And
Do
that's
we,
why.
do we have a copy of that we can look at?
I can do a comparison. And also what we were looking at was the additional units, which is the 550 for the Worthington and the 220 for KO Palone, which will both be master metered. Those communities on the irrigation side, and then the 130 in Arborwood, which is under construction right now.
Those three, those are the same three I'm talking about.
And Arborwood was included in that original because it was on the planning board.
Well, and then the other one's the Scoop.
Yep.
The school's a substantial ERC user. Okay.
So, and another thing I'll add is we did look, I'll say this, we looked at the rate study, because with the rate study, which the data's, we had detailed billing data from fiscal 2019. So looking at the meter equivalents on actual billing basis in 2019, it was 5903 for water. So that's based on 4,623 accounts. So equivalence was 5,900. In here as a build out of 7117. So, if it looked off, we would have dug further. There was no reason for us to do so, but we certainly can do that. But these are the exact same ERCs as the previous connection fee study.
I understand the irrigation because it's a different situation with the master meter, but water, those two should be very, very, very close together. Okay.
All right. Thank you again. And so let's keep moving to agenda 5.
Thank you, Tony.
Any
Thank
item
you.
for the consent agenda, A, B, or C?
I have none.
Can I get a motion to approve?
I make a motion.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chris already reviewed future board business in his report. We'll go to supervisor comment. I'll start down here with Bob.
Okay, I passed out the 2 pages with a bunch of photos from the inspection of Pond 5 in Silver Lake, Pond 85. And the summary is about 25% of that pond should require Armor Max. There's 3 specific locations, but the remaining 75% could be stabilized with a lower cost alternative, depending on what the numbers look like. The numbers, I'll read the first photo, which is the left on the front page. It shows a pretty typical area out there where you can see there's not much of an escarpment or anything. And it's I don't know why we'd want to go to $200 type of stabilization. The second photo right next to it is there primarily because of the box structure at the end of the pipe. It's submerged. It is a square box, looks like a coffin. I've never seen one of those before. I'm typically seeing mitered end sections or head walls or something like that. This is something new and I wanted to highlight it.
You talking this wood thing?
No. Page 1, the second photo, right side. So if you can see that, what looks like a C in the photo.
Looks like a quasi mitered.
Like a coffin, yeah. I mean, but it's but it was pretty much level. It wasn't tapered down. Anyway, I'd never seen one of those before, so I showed it for Stephen, and I wanted to make the board aware of it. We got something different. If the water level's up, you'll never see this sucker. Okay,
None of them you do.
if you go to page 2, on the left, a resident constructed out of a 2x8 an erosion barrier. Well, that's pretty nice. But
Does it look like it's working?
Bob,
People-
is that a drain pipe that ends right there?
That's what
Because it
looks like.
looks like
With,
to me.
the one next to it,
No, the one that has the.
no,
the
I couldn't
wood.
see a drain pipe there. No.
Looks like a washout
it
on the
look-
backside.
Yeah, it looks like there's a black pipe right there.
I couldn't see it, but
Okay.
I wouldn't doubt that it's there
All right.
because something caused it to
Oh, I
put
see
that
it.
barrier
You
in.
see it? I think it's too short. It didn't go all the way down to the pond, so it's causing it.
Well, but it's pretty close to
I
the
see what I
high
thought
water
it
mark.
was a splash block, and what it was trying to do is just,
Yeah.
Yeah.
spread the water out.
Diffuse it,
Like it-
yeah.
Yeah.
The next one was a pretty typical washout L standing there. You can just see the way between homes with the downspout drainage type of an issue. And then the last photo on page 3 is what I was talking about earlier, about residents incurring into our lake maintenance easement, either for shrubbery or whatever.
Oh, you mean their landscaping?
Yeah, they're way into it, and there's quite a few of those.
Well, I'm
Sometimes with
surprised.
trees and things.
I wish Joe was still here because I'm surprised that would even get ARC approval. Wait, this is Silver
Wouldn't
Lake.
get
It's
ARC.
Silver
Okay,
Lake.
never mind.
Wouldn't
Silver
get
Lakes.
ARC.
Yeah, I'm surprised it
Wouldn't
wouldn't
get
even get
ours
the ARC
either.
approval if it's in
We
the.
made them remove the last
in the
two.
easement.
My guess is that this is one of those that didn't go through ARC is my guess.
Yeah, probably. But anyways,
Okay.
just some typical observations. So, but if we decide to pursue the lower cost alternatives, the comment is that we got to come to an understanding with the HOAs and the residents, because the ponds that are being refurbished, because I got a lot of feedback out there. And I don't think that there's going to be a high rate of acceptance for a lower cost alternative. The attitude seems to be, you put it in Tinkle's neighborhood, I put it in mine. And I'll leave it at that.
Well, and I've heard the same thing in Stony Brook. And I think it's more about the final aesthetic product as opposed to everything else.
They just did mahogany aisles, and I'd say half of mahogany aisles is with the fabric. The other half have had more severe escarpment. They
It's the
used
rocks.
the,
Armor Max?
well, they used the Armamax. The other half, they used the filter fabric and put the stone on top, then put the sod on the top side. So I think that's about what you're going to see, because I continue to go on. Our water, our ponds, now maybe the ponds in the other communities, which I don't think is, but the soil is so crappy that when you put that compacted fill down, like Chris Mettauer was doing, they were pretty well compacting that material. But the minute that we got a rain, and we had a pretty good one while they were doing it, what do you get?
You get
Washout, right down to the lake.
Well, absolutely. And that's
And-
exacerbated by not having the downspouts. But, if you drain it properly there, you'll get much less of that. Because the
Well, and then
valuable would have
but you're
decreased.
also, direct downspouts.
By channeling that downspout off the two homes.
That-
That's
It's
a
just
ton
gonna
of
be
water.
hard to get I think
It-
these communities
it
to
is.
accept,
Yeah.
alternative solutions. Now, if there's alternative solutions that still end up with let's say the same appearance using the rock as a byproduct in the end, I think people don't really care what's underneath.
We're still putting the downspouts even when we have the Armor
Yeah,
Max.
yeah.
But the missed opportunity that occurred to me while I was doing all this is that once we engaged in the bank stabilization, it should have been with the understanding that the residents would accept the littorals to prevent future washout.
Yeah.
That was a real missed opportunity. But we might have that going forward in all the other bank refurbishment neighborhoods.
When you were out, did you also look, because one of the questions we brought up a couple of meetings ago was that we've got, I believe, 2 ponds that we're proposing to go to work on that I don't think have a priority as high as some of these other ponds, like 125 and 128.
Haven't gotten to that at all.
Those ponds are horrible.
Yeah, we're still trying to get through the first wave.
Okay.
But we will get there eventually.
Sounds good.
And that's
it.
That's all I've got.
And
I'm sorry.
Oh.
One other thing. Excuse me. Rumor is that the Pelican Preserve Golf Club has been sold along with another Lennar controlled golf club. Have no idea who's buying them yet. It's just bubbling up right now, but
Hadn't hit over in our deal yet.
you haven't
Because
heard.
if it would have been our owner, it would have been on the street, I'm sure.
Well, it's on the street right now, but in
But you don't have
Pelican.
a name.
No, don't have a name yet,
Okay,
or an amount, or how much money. Okay.
bet it's a number bigger than 25 million. Yeah, I had a couple of things. One, we were talking about all of the work that we're doing on the budgeting. Chris, remember, we've got on the roads improvement, we're talking about the soccer road out here. One of the one we want to do, well, we're going to be putting in those parallel force mains going back to the wastewater treatment plant. So let's get those in before we tear up the blacktop.
Okay.
I'd hate to put the blacktop down and come back and cut the brand new road.
Now that'll delay that paving.
That'll delay that a
Yeah,
little bit.
yeah.
I understand. The next one is I wanted to make sure and didn't have enough time to look at all this stuff, and I'll be looking at it closer. I want to go back to last year. I want to make sure that we're getting all of these new ERCs like Arborwood, that changed from an acreage deal over to a count. Make sure that we're getting those to make sure that our assessment methodology is using the right number. So I'll check that.
Yeah,
I've got a
that
lot of
was
faith.
included. I've reviewed that on Arborwood. And
I've got a
the
lot of
single family.
faith in Russ that he checks everything. And then the last one is, and again, I'm really concerned about is, boy, if we could get Stephen or somebody, whoever's doing it, contact the bank and just get a feel on a 15 to 20%. Because if $100,000 is the bond validation cost, I could almost forego the 6 months to get that, to be able to defer $5 million worth of work for 5 years to $5 million worth of work for 15 years.
Well, it still falls within the same physical budget year. We would just execute 6 months down the road.
What that allows us to do is this number that we're going to sooner or later get around to talking about is we're now up to over $1,300 currently, which is essentially double. We're almost at 100% increase in our deal. When we go back and take these numbers and factor the principal and interest in instead of the full cash value, these are going to drop significantly, but they aren't going to drop down to where we were at now. We're going to be up in the 800s easily.
To pay the principal and interest on that loan,
Yes.
to offset, yes. Sir.
So I'd just like to see if there is an alternative and an opportunity that they would lend us that $5 million for 3.5% instead of 2.62. Man, I think we need to take a real serious look at that.
Yeah. Okay. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Flavia?
I have a few. Are we still on schedule to open the dog park tomorrow?
I couldn't tell you that. I'd have to ask Jim, but I know that the rains helped them with that new sod and what they were doing down there. But I do not know.
Okay, so the last communication that I saw on the, Laura? Yes. Okay. Thank you. So, so this morning I visited the dog park and I don't know because Jim is not here. And I guess I should have asked him that. I believe there's some opportunities for us or for staff to actually check in the dog park prior to reopening. I was there this morning and I saw multiple areas where the fence, it's coming apart on the bottom. Tie straps are missing. It's actually unraveling in a different areas where the metal is actually just sticking out. So there's like some concerns. The metal slabs, what the picnic benches are sitting on, they're moldy and dirty. I just thought since it wasn't open for such a long time, we really missed the opportunity to getting those all little items ready for reopening.
Well, yeah, it would have been a great opportunity to do a walkthrough, see what other maintenance items could be addressed while it was closed.
So maybe they're doing early tomorrow morning, like a 7, maybe hint, hint.
I'll ask them about that. Yeah, you're right, because it's closed. They have plenty of time to go in there.
So that was my call for that. Also, I did observe multiple residents with dogs out, no leash, outside of the park. So since we're reopening tomorrow, maybe we can send an email reminder to the members of the rules, you know.
Almost to the point if you violate the rules, then your access could be revoked. Yeah. I mean, because especially what concerns me, and I'm sure a lot of the dogs, they're friendly and all that stuff, but when we've got a lot of stuff going on, there's a lot of kids out there, a lot of people. Last thing we want is there's a dog bite or whatever. So, I mean, it's the rules. Just follow the rules.
Yeah,
We invested a lot of money in that. Follow the rules.
And then finally, I know Tony was also working on something about, and also Brian, in regards to the chairs, that we're allowing the residents to bring the chairs, but they have to take the chairs in. there are actually more chairs now than before. They're just growing. So is, you know,
I think, Chris, I think we need to talk to Brian, and I don't want to prohibit what the folks do, bringing their chairs in and what have you, but if you bring a chair, you take it
take it
back with
home.
you.
Yeah, I
We're
agree.
not having people bring their own stuff in because we can't regulate that. And I think Brian may have mentioned this before. If we want to continue to maintain this park and invest money in it, the recommendation was to maybe close it one day a week for maintenance. He even said half a day, and I was like, look, if you need to close it for the day to have 1 day of rest or maintenance, it's, you know, I don't think it's too much to ask to have 1 day out of 7 for the dog park to be closed for maintenance.
What's the main use? Is it early morning or is it?
It's
in this
early
heat,
morning.
I would
Well,
think
it's
in
early
heat.
morning, afternoon, from what I've seen. I think it's
Typically early morning because the heat, especially now, it used
And
to be
then
more like
after
9, 10.
after
8 to 10:30
and 3:30 to 5.
3:30 to
I was
5.
gonna say close down from 11.
Laura
to
actually
3 or
has the
something.
data. She had pulled it out.
Wednesdays from 3 to 6 o'clock is the busiest time. So they come later in the afternoon, so we get most of the people.
I guess
But there's the dog park is closed on Thursdays until noon right now, so we have a half a day right now where we have.
is that the day where it has the least amount of usage?
Yeah, Wednesdays is the most usage.
Okay, let's just clarify, half a day is enough time for us to.
That's for them to mow and trim and check and whatever.
I mean, it
That's how
sounds
it's been,
reasonable.
so.
All right, so that's for dog park. And then if anybody could contact the school in regards to, and I think they warned us about this one, the roundabout is nothing but weeds. We're talking about 3 feet tall. Have you seen it?
Surprise,
And it's a different mowing
surprise,
schedule.
surprise.
Oh, it
I
is.
noticed one day, a portion is mowed, and then it's by the next week, or whatever, then the second, so it's never cut at the same
I'm
time.
not even complaining about that because we were in the same boat, so I'm used to that part. But the roundabout where the rocks are, it just needs. So I part of me feels
Surely
like
they put down,
part of me feels like, well, we told you so.
Filter fabric or something.
surely they put down filter fabric or weed
So-
barrier.
Just got there with Roundup, that'll take care.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just massive. And so that's for that roundabout. And then now in regards to the roundabout that's over here, and I did see that they started putting some landscaping. I saw a lot of sod. One thing that I mentioned a month back or so, it was in regards to the landscaping plans. And I know I had to reach out and there was nothing out there, it was way too early. Have we received any landscaping plans that what the county's
Oh, yeah,
planning to
they came with the original set of
just-
plans. We have
But-
them.
grass?
Very bare.
Well, it's county code minimum.
Yep, they do nothing.
Okay, have we as a board reached out and asked them to add more landscaping, given that the residents are, I mean, I know we all received emails over the last 2 days in regards to landscaping. You know, could we reach out to Pendergrass or to the county and maybe have them put some shrubs? I'm not asking for trees at this point, but some type of shrubs or anything to enhance that. I mean, it looked pretty nice with the sod. It looked clean, but maybe because I'm used to all the construction mess. But I think there's an opportunity for us to contact the county and ask for a little bit more and kind of set the precedence for the other one that's coming to
Considering what's been
7-Eleven.
removed.
Yes,
So when you
absolutely.
compare what has been removed versus what they're putting back, just from a green perspective. And
Yes.
again,
And
I'm not necessarily on that camp, but you know, there should be something.
That brings up a point on Gateway Boulevard where we're doing the sidewalking. I hope we have in the budget a little bit of extra money because the grass and landscaping is being destroyed by the construction.
It should be put back to what it looked like
Okay, good.
before they got started. And as far as the roundabout goes, it was kind of the same way with the street signs. The county said, you want to be on code minimum,
Yep.
you can write the check
You
and
write
do
the
it,
check.
and you can take over maintenance of it. So if you want to get into there and start paying those bills, that's simple, but to ask them and see, them to do it, I'll tell you.
Why don't we
right now.
wait until it's done?
That's what
Yeah.
I'm wondering.
And see
Wait
what it
till
looks
it's done,
like.
See what it looks like.
Well, I'm
if
not
it's
concerned about
appropriate-
the maintenance because unless I'm going to see a reduction in Mainscape's contract because it's a lot less now, right? So even if they add anything, it'll be a one-time cost for them and we're going to pick up the maintenance anyway because we're doing it. So I'm not concerned about the cost for maintenance, but I think that there's opportunity for us to engage I think it's a delay, if anything, because I think we should be asking way before. And I think we have the support of the community. I think we should engage now and maybe revisit and engage later on.
I guess it doesn't hurt to ask.
I don't have a problem with that, trying to get more, but I'd like to at least see what it looks like when they walk away. That's all.
Yeah.
And we did run an irrigation spur to the
Yes.
middle of that island in case we wanted to do something.
Yeah, that was a good
different.
idea.
It's there, but right now we're just.
Cheaper to do it now than later. Yeah.
Put a fountain in
Yeah. And lastly, any
You mean a
updates,
landing pad?
any
Yeah.
updates on the stormwater standards and the document?
I have to ask Brian on where the consultant is. I think he was supposed to come
Yeah,
back
that
with the
would-
report.
Yeah, it's
yeah,
about,
they
it's
should
it's
be done
about,
by
it's
now.
about that time.
That's a good point.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it, that's all I have.
All right, that being said, if there's nothing else, I will call the meeting adjourned at 5:20. So
Thank you.
we ran 5 minutes over. That's flawed.
Well, having Mr. Guy online must be slowing us down. So this, him not here, we got done early.